That you're live. All right. Good evening. Welcome to the January 23rd meeting of the Facilities Improvement Committee. We'll start with Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Dan DeWitt is not going to be with us tonight because he is sick. So you're stuck with me running this, which will be substantially less smooth, but you know, such is life. So we did circulate the agenda, and I think everyone knows that Ron has been gracious enough to take the minutes, which we very much appreciate. And so we did circulate the January 7th meeting minutes. Did everyone have a chance to review those?
I have a few revisions.
Okay, let's go. That was going to be the next question, so go ahead.
Fourth paragraph, toward CHS and LMS, this is a small point. First sentence, it was agreed that I would suggest if members want to tour LMS and CHS, not that we need to tour all schools. For those of us who
I'm sorry, say again, what was it?
I would suggest putting if members want to tour LMS and CHS, not that we need to tour both schools.
Okay.
So for those of us who aren't planning to come in because we know the schools, it doesn't look as if we didn't do it.
Okay. Good point.
Second one is under future use of Barker and Associates.
Yeah,
Second sentence, actually no, after the first sentence, it was noted that Carl Barker offered to provide any requested input that the FIC has regarding any building modification options at these schools. I just suggested that we put in, there was discussion about the appropriateness of Mr. Barker continuing to provide any additional information to this group without another formal request, and there was a spirited discussion about this. I think it needs to be documented that there was discussion. Or if you want to phrase it.
discussion about, I'm sorry, what?
Using Carl Walker and Associates in the future.
Okay, do you think we agreed not to use them in the future, is that what you're saying?
We agreed that we didn't need them at this point in time, but more importantly, that there was discussion pertaining to whether or not we use them at this point in time. I remember a little conversation going on to that point.
Well, I think it says that, if the last sentence is, the FIC requested that any specific printed reports that may have been done previously be submitted for review, but it was agreed, meaning there was, discussion, that Carl Barker's attendance at any meetings is not needed at this time.
That's my suggestion. I leave it to the chairs.
Well, there's only one of us. What does the rest of the group think? I mean, I do think that last sentence does cover that it was agreed. I mean, we could add in the discussion piece.
I would just write
What would you like?
spirited or.
You just put discussion ensued or something like that.
So
dramatic.
Discussion
Ensued.
I think the word dual.
Was there anything else?
Yes.
Okay.
Just
Well,
let
let
Ron
Ron finish what he's.
Discussion if I say discussion of this,
That's a minor point.
if
so-
I say a discussion of this offer was add,
Sure.
or ensued. Okay,
Number 3, under educational considerations.
wait a minute.
I am bypassing one of my notes, just,
That's on page 2 towards the bottom,
it should be like the
right?
5th bold
Oh,
paragraph you have.
Is it under consideration of moving 7th to 8th, or?
It's under, you've titled it, I believe, educational considerations. The whole school would need to be placed on a uniform schedule.
it's not bolded,
Okay,
at least
so-
what I'm looking at, but yeah, that's
I might
under,
have bolded mine.
Oh, education, I get it, I'm sorry, yep.
Yep.
Okay, go ahead.
The whole school would need to be placed on a uniform schedule. The schedule would likely be a block schedule of longer classes of 80 minutes versus 52-minute schedule. I just thought we should note that these classes would not meet every day, but every other day instead, because that's a change from what LMS does. I would also like put in that it was discussed that not all 7th and 8th graders may be emotionally or developmentally ready for this change in class schedule and interactions with fellow students who may be as young as 12 years old, and others who are up to 22 years of age.
Does everybody agree with adding that?
I have no objection to it.
Can you send that to me?
Yeah, I could give you a copy.
Okay.
All right, so we'll, was there more?
Oh, yeah. I'm sorry.
No, it's good.
Oh, thank you.
Next sentence, it was noted that there would need to be specific teacher development training for applying to the different schedule. I added also creative scheduling may be necessary as teacher degrees are not the same. And there are some differences from staff member to staff member regarding what grades and possibly subjects that they are licensed to teach.
Wait a minute, just.
Are these things that were discussed the other night, or just changes you want to add?
They were discussed.
I mean, I wasn't here, so I can't.
Yeah, no,
speak.
No, they were.
we won't let her just like, add narrative to the meeting that didn't occur.
Peter Plansky.
I am paying attention to that.
Peter was here and he said all of these things.
Yeah,
Yeah, Peter, it was you that said that, you don't remember?
I would rather have been here.
Okay, that's fine.
The next sentence, it was noted that they would likely be difficult to physically separate the 7th and 8th graders. I suggest change into almost impossible to physically separate the 7th and 8th graders without a renovation.
Okay.
I don't know if you would say difficult versus almost impossible.
Yeah, I mean,
That means
yeah, I'm indifferent
it's
on
a
that.
scale thing, I don't recall.
It's a minor point.
Sure.
All right, I'll leave that part, first part, leaving the
Next
renovation.
sentence, there was notation of the need for considerations in homogeneous classes or homogeneous leveling. This would need to be determined by the school administration. I just would add that it may be an issue because of the number of sessions of any class. May be limited, including AP and honors classes. I think that'd be important for
Because the
some of the
number of
parents.
sessions of any class may be limited.
Is that part of the
I'm not-
I mean, those are all like examples of things that could be the domino effect
Okay.
of some of these things. I'm not saying
I,
it
yeah,
is or it isn't.
to simplify,
like, yeah.
concerns included.
Yeah.
I just thought they should be noted.
Yeah, I worry
Okay.
that we introduce too much bias into the notes. So if we say, these are the concerns that were discussed included, then it's,
As I remember, there was also a discussion that moving 7th and 8th graders to Campbell could possibly enable someone who is more gifted in a particular area to broaden their horizons by having various upper-level classes available to them. So if we're including what you're suggesting, then I would suggest that that also be included.
Agreed.
Okay.
Then under your next header.
And just a second, please.
Sorry. The changes I gave you, okay, you're just taking notes on the
Yeah.
notes.
I was gifted.
I just gave it
I was gifted, I was given away.
That's funny.
Prize.
I'm just gonna try to capture the thought there, Rich, and then I'll, but essentially what you're saying is that by having 7th and 8th grade, it provides opportunities for those that could access a higher grade.
It's a possibility.
So like Carrie was saying, I think if we just highlight, there was discussion around there are limitations and.
There are
you know,
pros and cons.
Pros and cons, right.
Pros and cons.
because realistically, if you want to get the specifics, they can watch the video.
Right.
So ultimately, high level, things that were discussed.
Okay.
Then you have special ed, and then you have social considerations. I would just put a comment that at the end, it was noted that 12 and 13-year-olds may now be interacting with 18, 19, and sometimes up to 22-year-olds.
I think you said that, didn't you?
I
Yeah.
did. This may have unintended consequences both on the younger and older student groups.
But again, there could be positive, so I think we're getting
Right.
too much into the weeds on.
Yeah, I think we just have, for the minutes, we just have to capture that there was a discussion around integrating people as young as
Younger
people
and
as
all
old
that.
as.
You already said that in the
Yeah,
comment previous.
I think that's fine, yeah.
Under staffing considerations, third sentence, first sentence, there are considerations for educational staff and such as professional certifications for respective grades. There would be mostly sharing the classroom by teachers versus classroom assigned to teachers. I would just say that this is currently not the standard at CHS, and staff may not be comfortable with this change.
I'm not gonna agree to that.
I think, again, a bulleted point of the like, I understand that we wanna like, it's not a transcript of the meeting.
Right.
Right.
It should be things that were discussed.
High-level bullet points.
Yeah, the
Concerns
goal,
about
the goal of the
classroom
minutes is so that
organization.
way people can say, okay, that was discussed, I wanna go back and listen to that.
That's-
Yeah,
The reason being, that's making an interpretation of,
Right.
rather than
Reporting
simply
on.
noted, yeah. So I don't agree with that one.
Third paragraph, it was noted that the current discussion of changes is causing anxiousness among the existing staff. I would just suggest, it was noted that changing the LMS from a middle school model to an upper elementary model and changing CHS from a typical high school to a junior, senior high may not be a model that many of the staff would want to work in, and the district could lose excellent dedicated staff that have been here for years.
I disagree with
Again,
that.
we're not transcripting this, right? We're just
No.
discussing.
I disagree with that.
yeah, so I mean,
It was stated.
Right,
think-
we're
But
we're not
again, it's not
taking notes.
transcript, right? Like, it's just high-level bullet points. We talked about this thing.
I mean, I would, if, you know, if you wanted to capture a little bit more of it, you could say it caused anxiousness within existing staff and, you know, something about like possible, you know, concern around that, but I don't think you can go that far into detail for the purposes of the
We
minutes.
don't know that. We don't know that we'll lose staff. We
That-
lose
But
staff every year.
that was raised though in the discussion, right? It was that there was concern about staff retention.
Sure, we can leave it at that, but I don't.
Leave
want
it
It
at
was
that.
discussed that this could have an impact on the current staffing.
Sure,
I
just
think the
leave it at
sentence,
that.
the
When
way
you,
it's written is, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, when you start interpreting the whys and the hows in the minutes, then it's no longer a minute.
Right, but so
Right.
you're really just trying to cover what was
discussed.
what were the general themes of what was discussed, and I do think that one thing that was discussed within the anxiousness was the idea of staff retention.
Sure,
But
just
that's
leave it
as far
there.
as you go with it, just
I made no
staff retention.
interpretation, I just
Yeah.
put verbatim.
Yeah, all right,
I'll add a comment, staff retention may be an issue.
yeah, that's
Or
fine,
there's a concern about it,
Yeah.
something like that.
that's fine.
Because, you know, it may be an unfounded concern, we don't know.
May be a result, I guess.
Well, that could be.
Just part of the discussion.
Suggestion.
Yeah.
Brian sent out a very good summary of what he was going to present.
It's attached.
And
That's
then
there.
he presented it, so why don't we just say the topics that were discussed are included in
It
the
is
attached
attached,
summary?
it is attached,
And not have to debate
yeah,
how,
I just added it to the draft. I just have to do that.
Last comment.
okay,
There was discussion around the study analysis of the option of bringing the 7th to 8th graders up, which had a 50-50 split with no strong support for or against the proposal. There was concern noted that it would not reach a supermajority needed to pass a warrant article.
I don't think that has to go to a vote.
The concern about the supermajority, I think, would be a bond project
Right.
that's not related to whether or not you restructure the school. Because that would be a simple majority or a discussion by the school board.
Yeah, I don't even know that it needs to go to a vote. I think it would just be a decision by the school board.
I'm not saying that a decision is made, but that it was brought up that this was not strongly supported by the survey. And we were going to circle back to discuss how any educational or any changes.
Sure, but I think the discussion about the supermajority would be tied to concerns about a bond vote. But I think we're conflating two right there, because you don't need a supermajority. If we discussed a supermajority for consolidating or restructuring, then that would be an inaccurate statement. perhaps it was discussed that there was concern about supermajority because uncertainty of how the votes were played out, but it's not necessarily
You could-
related to the actual consolidating of the school,
You
or
could
relocating.
rephrase it that it would not pass through a vote.
But
You
what
don't know.
would
Again,
not
I don't think it
pass?
has to go to a
No,
vote.
you can't make that determination.
I don't think that,
I think,
I don't think we
I
talked
think
about
we,
that.
No, I don't think
yeah,
we
I'm
did
I'm
either.
having trouble, I'm honestly having trouble recalling that component of it, but I think that the benefit we have here, right, is that the meetings are recorded, so people can go back and actually hear what we talked about. So I think we have like a decent overview of what we talked about. I appreciate the revisions, because I think there were some good points in there. But I think we'll probably leave it at that unless anyone has strong objections.
Are we
Okay,
gonna
so-
discuss the meetings from the 2 meetings before?
I think we decided, or at least in talking with Dan, that we weren't Ron hadn't officially started keeping minutes, even though he was, but we hadn't talked about that as a committee, so the 7th is kind of like where we're gonna start and
Okay.
move forward.
Because I would recommend against voting to approve those minutes.
Okay, yeah, we're not gonna,
The only reason I made those is with, and I think we need to look at them, there was a specific recommendation made to the school board, but that has not been brought to the school board yet.
specific recommendation we did, go ahead.
That's
Tell-
where I
tell
had the
me.
issue with, because
tell
I
me.
don't recall coming to any recommendations, and there were several put into these minutes.
I disagree with you 100%.
Well, why don't we just
I'll go
hash it
to-
out real quick, because we got other stuff to do.
Yeah, the recommendation is on the, it was a motion by Mr. Blinas. The committee recommends that to mitigate unauthorized and unattended leaving of the building at GMS, the school board immediately proceed with the design and installation of delayed egress push bars on 9 doors at GMS as suggested by Mr. Mitchell, voted unanimously.
We did raise that to the school.
No, you didn't, not the way this is written. You said the committee discussed that you should consider. That's not what the motion was. The motion was for you to.
I'll tell you what, Ron, I will go back to the school board and tell them that we would like them to go put those in.
No, you need to, that was the recommendation specifically. So
Okay.
what I ask you to do is read what that is to them.
Okay, email me what you want me to read to them, and I'll read it at the next
Okay,
meeting.
much appreciated.
Sure.
Can I just bring up one other point?
Sure.
The concerns I had is that several of the questions in the mittens noted that there was consensus in interpretation of the survey graphs. And I don't believe we ever.
Well, we're not ratifying those minutes, we're not gonna vote on those minutes, so I
Good
think we're okay to just move forward. All right, we'll wait to vote on those minutes until they're updated at the next meeting, so we're good to move on, I think, at this point. So, the next thing that we were gonna do on our agenda is start to discuss the matrix. I apologize, I know people wanted it a little bit sooner, but I didn't have it, so, and Joe was helping us out by trying to type it all up, so. It is available on the drive now,
It's in the GMS folder.
in the
It's in the
GMS.
GMS subfolder.
And we are gonna
Does anyone have any
broadcast that.
copies?
We did, I wasn't,
It's a
I wasn't.
it's a
somewhere I could-
spreadsheet. You wouldn't want it as a hard copy. It'd be huge.
It's called GMS Matrix Draft 1.0.
You'd be on like 3 different pages.
In 1 second, just give me a moment. Anyone watched last night, you know, technology's not my
Right.
Technology courses.
I'm in the GMS
friend. He
folder.
used to be my friend, I don't know what happened. Hey, look at that.
You get the other TVs on by chance?
It's fine.
Um,
They were on a minute ago.
So we're gonna go through this, but I think as we go through this, we really need to have a discussion about how we best feel we're gonna use this. You know, one thing that, as I was mulling this over and looking at it and trying to think about that exact question was, you know, ultimately, most of these options, the answer is going to be, does this address the option? It's going to be yes, right? You can address, we're talking about multiple options that involve renovations and additions and modifications that you could make modifications in a lot of instances to achieve a lot of these things. And the real question is, what is the cost to do that, right? And we don't know those, we don't know that information. So It's something that I was kind of mulling over. I don't know if anyone else had that same
I mean, currently the way the matrix is set up, and Joe can speak to it a little bit more, but it's the first 89 items are from the on-site insight report.
Correct, yeah.
And the
so-
on-site insight report basically says that, like, these are the repairs that need to be made. So a repairs only option would
Would
do
address
those
those.
things.
Yep.
And
and so
then
would
you
all the
can,
others.
you can assume that anything greater than repair only would also do those things. It's down below when you get to
Correct.
the
So what
other
this,
stuff.
those first 89 items are, and where I stopped, basically, I took the first 5 years of recommendations from Onsite Insight. And that's what those first 89 items are. What I think we need to do first is look at those ones at the bottom and say, are there any more that are not there that we need to add? And then we can go through and kind of answer each option and whether that addresses that and provides that solution. When Harper's like, one of them I just realized on my way over here that's not there is the traffic and proximity to 3A problem.
No, we just solved that on the 7th.
Well, we can add it to the matrix, though.
You solved the traffic problem?
Well, we're concerned about 3A. The traffic problem still exists.
Okay. I was gonna say, wait, you solved traffic?
Make everybody ride the bus.
Good luck.
Traffic.
I'm gonna put that in the minutes.
I'm trying.
Peter
Yeah,
Plansky says
I can
everybody needs
get-
to ride the bus.
Everybody should
Yeah.
ride the bus.
Yeah, no. My kids, even when my kids were at LMS and GMS, no.
So, and like, so some of these,
Construction,
what's that?
are these just construction?
Nope. So the ones here in orange are Dan Mitchell had put on here that were kind of part of the educational needs. I do think we need to detail these out a little bit more, because I don't know what interior remodeling or
Yeah.
interior redesign means. So we may have to either provide that with more detail or break that out into a more separate thing.
Yeah.
So I think having discussions around those and clarifying.
Based on the presentation I gave, it falls more in categories as opposed to specific areas or projects, which we can expand upon.
So I think, do we want to just start with if anybody has anything that they can think of that's not
I was thinking
present there?
I was thinking of one thing that we've talked about is interruption to education, depending on what we pursue and like how much it's going to interrupt.
I think it's a good thing to look at. Yep.
Wait, are you, I'm sorry, you said that only so I know what to speak to.
So when we look at, if we look at repair only,
That would be in consideration of any one of these projects, that if we decide to pursue it, we also need to know
I
what
think-
impact that would be on operating a school currently.
So
Right,
that,
but so-
I think that's a different option, a different answer though than a yes, no, like the matrix is designed for. So maybe you put that to the side
So-
and say like, what of the options, which one, what's the level of impact
So-
to operations on a day-to-day basis?
Well, can I back up here? This whole thing is not a yes or no solution. And I know the matrix is trying to capture all these things, but what are we intending to do with this matrix? What do you think it's going to inform us?
Well, ultimately, what we need to do is by March, we need to have a recommendation for the school board, right? And so we're trying to, one of the things that we've looked at is the survey, right? That's one of the pieces of information that we have to try to guide us
Yeah.
on what we're gonna recommend. And then the idea with the matrix was, taking a look at, I thought it was 3, but we're looking at 4 options and seeing how some of the stuff that Dan raised, and we were gonna look at the onsite insight stuff, although I think we just came to the realization that all of these things can solve the deficiencies with onsite insight. So ultimately, it's gonna come down to some of the educational stuff that Dan presented and how do each of these options sort of address those.
Okay, because there's not enough options on here.
What do you mean there's not enough options? Those are the kind of 4 options we've been investigating this whole time.
No. What about 7 and 8 moving up? How does that fit in here?
Right now, I think we're just talking about the GMS building.
It's gotta be included, because if you move 7 and 8 up there, you take 10 classrooms out of GMS. That's a different consideration. That solves all your problems.
We can add
Yeah,
that as a comment.
that's fine.
That's absolutely a factor, right?
Yeah.
If we moved kids around.
Right. So,
So add that as an option, that's fine.
and you can, and quite truthfully, there's another option, repairs only, which does not
Which is
include
here.
It's on there.
It's the first
which
column.
does not include rehab of the 1930s, and repairs open only with the repair of the 1930s. Those are two different options.
I think we're
You're
trying
getting a little
to-
granular with the options, right? We can't have 50 different options. We have to try and start narrowing this down.
We can add 30s building to the,
Huh?
we just had 30s building there.
As a need renovating
next one.
30s
But what is,
building?
in the matrix, it's not, it doesn't,
Well, Ron, what do you suggest, how do you suggest we get to the next step, which is making a recommendation to the school board?
and that's why I asked to see if I could look at this ahead of time to give it some thought. So I just looked at it 10 minutes before I got here. So, first of all, I think we need to fully vet the honest, true options that we have. That's where we need to start. And
What does that look
categorize-
like?
Pardon me?
What does that look like?
Okay, so, the first thing is, yes, a new school's an option. The new school with a renovation is an option, and that's really Carl Barker's,
Current school with renovation.
pardon me?
The current school with a renovation. You said new school with a renovation.
I'm sorry, I misspoke. Yes, renovate the school, do you have renovate only here on?
Yeah, so we have repair only, renovation, renovation in addition, new building, and then we're gonna add the,
Okay,
Reconfiguring.
reconfigure it, yeah.
Can I mention one thing?
yeah,
It's not gonna help, I totally appreciate what you're trying to do, but we can't agree on interpretation of 8 survey questions. You now have 105 check marks of different degrees of.
I mean, we have to start agreeing at some point, right? Like, we gotta make a recommendation.
Can I ask
Well,
a
we're gonna-
clarification?
We can't keep arguing about the
Ron?
options.
That's really what it
Ron,
is.
can I ask a clarification, just so we can move forward? The way that I read this, the renovation only, the second option, renovation only, implies to me that there would be a redistribution within the district, because the only way to do renovation without actually addition, like, if we went the renovation only implies that there would have to be some grade level movement.
well.
Because renovation only means that we're either sticking with 6 portable classrooms, or we have made, so that would, so we don't have to put that as a separate one, it's kind of implied in there. That's how I read it, I just,
I think it
I
needs to
don't-
be a separate one.
Yeah, I think
I
it has to be a separate one.
I didn't interpret it that way. I think it needs to be separate.
Because ultimately, there was one option, which is we live with portables, right? That's just part of the, and so, I bet now, I don't know that had a lot of support as compared to other options, at least in the survey, but I do think it has to be a separate one.
I don't think we
Can I go back to
talked
one
about
point?
portables in the survey, did we?
You've given everything equal amount of work here. You have to weight some of these things, the restroom fixtures versus the core build and design
This is,
are not equal, but if you're gonna vote on every single one, you're
it's
gonna
not a
have
vote,
to-
right? It's just
It's not a
saying
vote.
which
Just say
options
this-
can address
this
these
addresses,
things.
this doesn't address this.
And you may end up with 60 small things.
So,
When really what you wanna fix is 20 big things, is my concern.
so here's the.
You're trying to
here's the
figure out
thing
which
that
one
we're
of these
trying
things
to-
fixes the most of these things.
The most serious of these things, I don't think they're all created equally.
So then how can you line them up so that they are somewhat equal in
We're
weight?
not saying that they're equal. Like, it doesn't have to be equal. You're trying to figure out, these are the things that are known, right? There's 5 years worth of stuff in this report. Dan has listed out all the operational, educational things. We're trying to add a few extra ones that we forgot about. And then you just have to say, like, can we address this thing with a repair only? Yes or no?
So how are you going to at the end?
And then you
decide-
add them up at the end and say, how many yeses does each one have?
Well,
But is bathroom fixtures really of the same weight?
It's a thing that needs to be taken care of, one way or the other.
Does it
can I
get
be
the
honest
same
with you?
weight?
I think that anything up to 89, I don't even know that it matters, because we can address those in all of the options,
Correct.
right? So really, it's just the yellow stuff that I think is gonna have an impact, and we don't even know. I do wanna just, and Peter, correct me if I'm wrong, but the school board has sort of indicated that they want us to just come back with you need to investigate this option, right? They haven't
One.
said to us, they don't want us to come back, at least this is my interpretation of what they've been saying to us. They don't want us to come back and say, you need to hire someone to go re-vet all the options again. Don't you agree with that?
Yeah, I don't know that would necessarily be one. I think we would present, honestly, I think we would present two. One is,
Yeah.
is this option that we think can work,
Right.
and this option that we
Right.
think we can work. And then the school board can make a decision and decide what's gonna go on the warrant, whether that's a repair, renovation, new school, whatever it is, or, you know, a new school and a repair or renovation, to go to the, not to go to a vote, but to go to the school board with a recommendation. And I think one thing we all have to consider is, how much is it gonna cost?
But that's my question to you. Can we go back to them and say spend up to $28,000 either in a new school, taking some stuff off, or in a renovation addition, and you guys get the best bang for this amount of money? Whatever you think you can
Well, I
accomplish
think
the
that-
most of.
I think that the school board doesn't, I think the school board has this committee for the purpose of trying to give more direction, because the school board it doesn't really bode well when the school board just unilaterally decides things,
Right.
so.
But can you give them a dollar amount to spend up to either with?
We don't know, but we don't know.
Like
We
a
don't know what that
bond
dollar
for
amount is.
$25 million and spend it however you want, kind of thing?
That's not gonna go.
They have a term for that.
Yeah, I
I'm
mean,
pretty sure the budget committee will have an issue with that.
I think you go
Texas slush.
with a maximum of two options, right? Like, I think you
Yeah,
give them
I-
any
look-
more than that, then we've all just wasted our time, right? Like, we need to narrow this down.
I think we need to narrow it to two options as well. I agree with Peter.
I'm
So,
not sure you're gonna be able to do that.
I think we also have to be.
We have to,
careful.
like, that's our charge.
No, we don't have to. It may be impossible to do.
Well, then we should all just go home then.
I'm agreeing with that.
Well, I mean, there's gonna be a variety of views, there's gonna be challenging enough to come to consensus. As you look through this, we have to recognize cost is gonna be a factor. We have to also recognize, we're about to get screwed by the state for the next couple of years. Our revenues are going down substantially. So what you see on this year's bill, congrats, you're probably gonna see it again for the next 2 years, 3 years. So, again, we're not gonna have the free money that we have once had, because we're gonna turn into hollows on our tax bills. So how much spare revenue are people gonna even have? So while people may say, the new building is the only choice we have, and we will still be talking about it in 30 years, because people are gonna be broke and unable to afford it. So factoring in the money, I know that we have our wishes and desires, but the money has to be factored in.
I haven't heard anyone say that the new building is the one and only one we'll support.
Say that again? What?
Well, there's a lot of people who seem to want, well, again, there's people who are in town, not necessarily here, who feel that that's the only option, and I'm concerned. We'll solve our problems, we'll have a new building, and then everybody moves out because you can't afford to live here.
And also,
Okay.
just to say, the matrix is not supposed to tell us what to do, it's supposed to lay it all out, because let's be honest, new building gets all yeses, because we can design it to
Yeah.
be all yeses, so just put yeses down on that call. That doesn't, it's not like a counting up points to see who the winner is.
It's a tool.
It's to say, this
That's what I was
option
saying.
gets us these, but we also have to live with not
What are we
adjusting
willing to
this.
accept,
What
yeah.
what can we live with, what can, you know, and
right.
it's a fair and balanced
You fold
comparison
in, you
sheet.
fold in the cost estimates that we have through all the different reports that we have, you fold in the survey results, and then you come to some kind of middle ground.
so in that vein though, Dan, new building gets all yeses. I agree, but
No,
When
it
we start-
doesn't, because the cost of it doesn't get.
well, but that's not
But
the
the cost
point, Ron.
isn't
The
Cost
point-
is not
the
on
point
here, this is just addressing
the
all
point
of
is-
the identified issues.
So my
That's what the matrix does.
my
It
point then
identifies
becomes, we don't actually know then for renovation and, I mean, presumably for renovation and addition, they would be all yeses as well, because you could achieve, if you're doing an addition, you can achieve.
Not necessarily, no, because like you're not gonna end up, like you're gonna do an addition that's gonna add some classrooms. You're not relocating your central services, your office, your other stuff,
It depends. upon-
potentially, like it may not.
You may
Well,
not
and
have
also-
traffic, I think that's the.
Right, you're not gonna,
There's traffic,
can't
the
move
proximity freeway.
the rest of the
And
building.
Some of the middle ones, right now, we're looking at this as a yes, no. I think the committee to effectively answer this also has to allow for maybe.
Well, yeah, I agree.
Some of them are gonna have maybes. And that's when you get to the decision, if we get to the design phase and then it's the maybe is it possible?
Right.
So for instance, renovation addition, relocating the main office, or the main session, maybe. That could be a possibility, or we
It
could have to live with it
would
where it
depend
is.
on the design.
You know,
Or the budget, what
But
we're
the-
willing
exactly.
to pay for. Because, yeah, with enough time, money, or with
Yeah, you could
time-
do anything you want,
You
but
can
But
do
right,
new
you
building is the
do
only
it all
one that
within
gets
reason.
guaranteed yeses, because we don't have the design, and we can just say,
Yeah,
make it do all these things.
But to Kerry's point, then you get to the money and it's a no,
Yeah,
Right,
you know?
right.
But again, for this exercise,
right.
it's not about money, it's about problem solving or addressing.
Well, the difficulty, well, where do you start bringing the money into the question?
Well, that's the real challenge with this, right? Because ultimately, the only way you get to the money is by having professionals tell you what it's going to cost to do those, to vet those options. Like, we're not gonna be able to identify what the costs are.
No, but what we could have and should have likely done is, how much are people willing to pay? Because if we paid out an option, and it was removed from the survey, I get it, but ultimately, the taxpayers have only so much money to spend. How much of that are they willing to contribute to this project? That really defines what you can do.
I think there are people who are gonna choose the smallest option. There's people who are not gonna understand 4 cents on the dollar, no matter how many times you explain.
Well, it's not gonna be 4 cents on the dollar.
Any of such number.
I think that,
There are very few people who are going to say, let me pay more taxes.
No, but they can say, I'm willing to give you $1,500 a year. That's my contribution, that's it. Then you say, okay, well, if we calculate that out for all the people in town, I now have a budget of whatever. Right now, we're spitballing without any idea what people are willing to pay. When we lost $2 million several years ago, we had 3 town meetings to determine how much people were willing to see their taxes increase. The consensus was under 5%. How much are people willing to see their taxes increase to meet this? We can say, this is the best, most affordable option, and people can still say, out of my price range. So that's the piece we're really missing. What budget are the taxpayers willing to give us?
And I think that what's tough about that, though, is in the other direction, is people are, if someone says, well, I'm willing to give you $50, right? Like, that doesn't.
Well, if you have 42% of the public that says that, that's your budget. Because they will kill, with a supermajority, your request. If 52%.
Did they do that with the police station?
Huh?
Did they do that with the police station?
We don't have a police station.
Yes, we do.
Well, we don't currently have a
No,
police, we have
that's
a
the-
fire station.
The proposal that's coming up for the police station.
Well, it hasn't been voted on. Now, everything I hear says,
No, he's
don't
asking,
do it.
He's asking,
Did they do
ask
that?
people-
No,
Did
and
they
they
do
probably
that?
should have.
Yeah.
But the original proposal was also $12 million. So we've cut it in more than half.
you, to your point on cost, you actually have,
I think you have a lot
you
of
have
different costs.
cost numbers already to answer every one of the options.
To answer every one of the options?
Well, I don't think.
Not necessarily the new build, because we know what it's gonna look like, but you're gonna talk about the Turner and the other.
Well, you got, between the onsite insight and Carl Barker's
Yeah,
things of 720, we have all the numbers we need.
I agree. I think between all the different reports, there's numbers galore
There's enough numbers
to give you estimates. They're not concrete numbers. They're not gonna be like, someone gives you, here's the work scope, I'm gonna go build this tomorrow, here's your bill. But they give you a ballpark.
and if somebody says, I think the numbers are low, then we can agree to add contingency to each one of the ones we have,
Agreed.
whatever that amount we want to agree on. So we can put cost numbers to each one of these estimates based on what we have right now.
And that's why I think we have that piece of it, right? Like, now you have to say, here are all our problems, which one addresses those problems, and now where is the cost, right? Like, if we can get 90% of our problems out of one of these options, and that cost is more palatable, that may be our solution.
There, I agree with you.
Okay, so I think we should try to do this, so that way we at least maybe get somewhere. And I do like that we can then add some numbers to it. So we left off prior to that discussion with what, if there's anything else that needs to be added to this matrix. Why don't we just go down, we're talking about the yellow section, because I think we all agree, right, that the first 89 can be addressed in.
So do we have an indication of which of these are must-haves versus which would be really awesome to have, but I can live without? Or are
So-
these all must-haves?
I think that's what Denise was kind of asking, and I think that,
I think that's a different exercise of ranking priority.
Well, I'm
I
just,
still can't read 89 of those as quickly as you flesh them out, I'm sorry.
The top, like I said, the top 89 are in the on-site insight report. These are the first 5 years worth of things that they said need to be taken care of.
So, but, I know, even in the presentation last night, it was like, even the things in the first 5 years are things that are at sufficient state of disrepair that they need to be done on that schedule, but they're not necessarily things you would prioritize, you know, like
I don't disagree
paving
with that.
kinds of things or whatever, you
Yeah.
know, so I think I don't necessarily agree that the first 89 are yeses across the board.
Well, the
I think
yes,
we
the
gotta
yes
It's not
is-
about prioritizing
I think
them,
we have
right?
to
Like, it's not
accept
about whether or not
something.
you're gonna do it. It's can the solution fix it?
Is it solved by
It's
that
not
solution?
about whether we're gonna use it to fix it or not. It's about can it?
If we do the repair option, does it
It checks the
fix all
box,
of
yes,
those
yes,
things?
yes.
So in that case, it'd be like upgrade, redesign the restrooms, probably not, because you're just, or unless you're, what does that even mean? Is that replacing
So that was one of my questions.
stalls?
Some of it needs to be
Is that,
we need
Defined
to-
more.
We need to refine some
Some
of
of the,
these.
yeah, some of the yellow we need to.
I would say.
Break out.
Just look at like the number 89 to answer your question about, like, would it have to be done in the first 5 years? You need to deal with restroom fixtures, period, right, like everything. So if I see this as on the top group there, that like, if we follow the on-site and site report, even if we don't necessarily do it in the first 5 years, we do it in 10 years' time, we're still gonna do the things on that list, right? And if we're talking about, like, we're do the repair, if repair only is direction you go in, you're talking like such a large quantity of money, you are bonding that, so you might as well get it all done, right? Like, you're gonna do it all then there anyways, because of what you're gonna do with that scope of work right then and there. So that's why I think it's safe to say that's yes across the board for all of those.
Then I would, based on what I heard yesterday, I would add on the need side of things, I guess, making things accessible, you know,
Oh, yeah.
the Disability Act.
I think that's,
Fine.
I think that's a good
I
add
think-
here.
Exactly.
But-
This is
but
exactly what we wanna do,
I-
yep.
I think
Could
fire
I-
protection needs to be,
looking
because
at
what
this-
she said is if you did all those things on onsite, insight, it would take your existing facilities and bring them up to a current state of repair. But it
Right.
wouldn't do anything for code compliance, wouldn't do anything for accessibility, wouldn't do anything, you know, no sprinkler system,
Agreed.
whatever. So, and those things are not educational needs, they're health and safety needs, and they're not reflected in the matrix right now.
Fire-
Perfect
was it
add.
fire
I think
what?
that's exactly what we want to do here, right? What is missing from this that we need to add?
Sprinklers.
So did we
I'm
ever
just, I'm
find out
keeping
what
my
the
mouth shut on
threshold
that
is?
one, because I think that's,
Threshold for what?
I'm just kidding.
When that whole code thing kicks in? Is
Once
there-
you start bringing stuff to code, you gotta
Well, it's
bring-
it's a certain percentage.
Yeah.
And she said that they didn't they aren't able to factor that because the codes are different
It's-
across.
Well, they-
Have we asked our local
Department
building
of
inspector? Oh, no, they're
Education
interviewing for
should be
that.
able to let us-
We don't have a building inspector at the moment.
It's a
He's being
huge-
interviewed right now.
I can tell you that whole question
Today.
is, there's no definition specifically. It isn't any definition. Typically,
A lot of building code isn't. You leave it up to.
no.
And it
what-
has to do with
hey,
current
let me
costs.
Let me finish. When Carl Barker, we walked around Carl Barker, he said, oh, you know, we need to be careful about, everything we do in here, if we do a major renovation, will require us to bring the full building into code. And that's if we do what he has for renovation at $26 million or his repairs. That's what he's basing his repair numbers on.
it's a big number.
That's a
I
huge,
can't believe-
let me just finish, I think you need to understand this point. What kicks that off is traditionally, if you, and this varies, that you cannot find a particular regulation that speaks to this, but the typical is if you spend 60% of the value of the building in your renovation, then that says, okay, you should bring the building up to code. The question becomes, what's the value of the building? And that varies. There is 4 to 7 different methods to evaluate a building. It is fair market value, it's replacement value, it's half a replacement value. So the way to evaluate the cost of fair market value can go from, 50% of the new to 70% of new. The problem is, not problem, the point is if we stay in repairs only, we don't come anywhere near kicking in, needing to bring the building up completely to current codes. And let me just finish that thought. The current building meets codes and passes inspections.
The current building is grandfathered.
No, it meets codes.
It meets current code.
It meets codes that allows us to use it.
No, it's grandfathered. It doesn't meet
You call
current
it
code.
grandfather? Yes, okay. What do you want to,
Well, that's an important distinction, because if you end up having to comply with current codes, you have to bring the building up to code.
but that,
I almost like.
I will volunteer tomorrow. I'm up in Concord for public hearings.
Go knock
The
on the building
DOE
inspector.
is on my way out of Concord. I will go to the Department of Education tomorrow and get that question answered. We were just there last Monday.
You would share that with me, that'd be great, cause
I'm gonna walk in, I'll set my butt down in front of,
I don't know if it's
Frank.
I
I
don't
mean,
think they'll be able to answer it
Yeah, I
though,
don't
it's
know
one of
if
those.
they will.
Although they do, doesn't the DOE inspection?
I'm sure there's a state
But
building
Adam's
office up there,
Adam's-
go knock on that door.
There's gotta be a formula for it. There has to be.
Can't we agree that regardless of what we do, we should meet current codes, that any citizens who's paying
So,
any additional taxes?
so again, what we're
want that?
talking about right now for the purposes of the matrix is just, does this option, would this option enable us to meet current code? That's,
Should that not
Can
be
I
a
clarify
goal?
one thing though?
Yeah.
When you say code, that is a huge overarching thing. Are we talking about life safety code, electrical code, plumbing code?
talking about all of the above.
Right,
Seismic.
well, what do you have to, I mean, to meet the latest plumbing code, you may have to build a new building. But,
Well, so, but so what we
Why?
need, that's exactly right, so like what we need to know is,
Yeah.
again, you know, if Ron's saying it's, you know, if Ron's right and he's saying it's 60% of the value, then if we were to hit 60% of the value, and we would have to, like, if that's a consideration, we have to know that.
rather than waste time at this meeting talking about that, I will give myself that job to go get that answer. That's,
Appreciate that, thank you.
Good luck,
best of my
because
knowledge.
there's always a lawyer involved in that one, so
Right, and
good luck.
then the
I'm
word's
on
hard to say.
I'm on
come-
education
come up.
funding, they have to talk to me.
but that's not something they'll give you an
On a
answer for.
Friday?
I agree with you.
I don't know, I thought they were pretty forthcoming with all the
Well,
information.
no, they might have their interpretation, but I'm saying, when I've been involved in these projects, it's usually a lawyer. How do we determine the fair market value? It's open to interpretation. Is it fair market?
Well, at a
value?
minimum, it'd be
And
nice to get a
It's hard to
confirmation
say. I
that it
would-
is 60% of the fair market value, right?
No,
Like,
it's not even that. That's the rule of thumb of which, if you hit 60% of replacement cost in your remodel, that's the rule of thumb says it's better to build new.
I mean, what we were
That's not
told,
even the
what
code.
we've been told the entire process is, it's if you touch a certain amount of the building, not, it didn't have to do with.
It has to
the-
do with cost.
I will get that answer tomorrow.
But Ray's gonna get that answer
If I
tomorrow.
get it tomorrow, if not tomorrow, Monday.
I was
I'll
gonna
be up
say,
in Concord
I
on
will
Monday
say, if
too.
you can actually get a firm answer, the school board or.
go to New Hampshire
and
Ed on a Friday.
Something nice, because I'm pretty sure you will not be able to nail that down.
Let me just give you an
I'm
example.
I'm gonna take that on as a
I'm
challenge.
gonna put that on you.
Yeah.
All right.
Let me give you an example of why this is so important to understand. In Carl Barker's evaluation, one of the things he does, he assumes that we have to bring the building up to current code, which includes bringing the building up to seismic codes. Does anybody have a clue how intensive bringing a building
Right.
of that vintage up to seismic is? Essentially is taking it back to standing walls. In fact, even then, you probably have to take walls down and rebuild them. It is that
Right, and that's why
crazy.
it's important for us to know that, right? Because if that is the case, then that is a substantial thing that we have to consider.
And it may make one of the
Because
options
at the end of the day, look, if we go back to the
outrageously
voters and say
expensive
we
and
have,
not be able to do it.
Or that reduces your budget to work with, because everybody was like, stay under that number.
So,
right, but you may not be able to, at that point, you may not be able to
Right,
even.
it just may take a whole option off the table, right? If like,
so if you're down in the $4 million, $5 million, even $10 million range, you won't be kicking that code in.
that's what I'm saying. I'm not disagreeing with you on that. I'm saying like, knowing where that line is helps you determine whether an option is viable or not. Right, if
It's
a
not in need of
renovation
falling down.
and addition is gonna kick that line and make us have to bring the rest of it up,
Bingo,
and
bingo, you're right.
makes that project now not cost effective,
That's-
that option will be off the table, right?
And that's the
Base savings.
that's the renovation definition that Kyle uses in there. That's why it's 20 $6 million for renovation
Right.
versus $4 million for repairs.
Where are you getting $4 million? Like,
From, inside, and HL permit.
On-site, it's 4 million without the 1930s.
but again, she even confirmed that 4 million is not a out the door project. She said that there's things that are not included in her.
A lot of things that were included in her report.
But not,
Right.
you know,
So, but I mean, but I
Well,
just want to be
fire
careful though,
suppression
because.
isn't included in it, and then there's the
Well,
the
no, she
unknown.
said, she
Right.
said that,
I think she gave a good example, that if you were to bring like the 3 boiler systems up, right? So you could just replace those boiler systems as is, and that's what she's quoting in the report, right? But if you were to bring an if you were really go down that road and start that project, you would bring an engineer in, and then you don't know what the cost is gonna be. It could be less, it could be more, cause they may say like, if you're gonna be efficient, you should do this heating model now, right? Because those boilers were put on.
And your distribution
as-
system is also 70 years old, you need to replace that too.
Right, and you
Right,
just
well,
don't know, because the boilers were put in as the additions were put on, right? But if you're like not adding to the footprint and you're like committing this is your footprint, right? Then when someone comes in to like look at all that, they may say like, you need to redesign this for long-term efficiency. That's what she's not factoring in there.
She
That
also
could
is
be
not
less
including
savings, that could be more
she's also
savings,
not
who knows?
including GC costs, she said.
Right.
She said there's engineering is only where noted, so there's engineering costs that aren't included in there.
Include any of the pipe replacement, if you had to replace
If you had to
the
replace it,
distribution
right.
piping.
But I don't disagree that that option will be less expensive than a full renovation and addition or a new
Right.
building.
Agreed.
It'll, even if it goes from 4 million to 10 million, it's still less.
considerably. Orders of magnitude less.
Now, the question is, does that option it obviously fix all of the building issues? Does it address these other issues?
Educational.
And how do we weigh the two? That's what this is designed to help us do.
I do think we gotta get back on task here, it's almost 6:30. If there's other stuff we have, no problem. If there's other things we need to add here that we need to consider, for example, I'm gonna throw one thing out there. We have a fire suppression system, right? Like, we might ultimately say no to that, but that's a consideration we should put on this list right here. It's not included on the on-site insight report. If we were just to do a repair only as that report is, the answer would be no for that type of thing. But I would imagine if we elected to build a new building, now, I'm not advocating for that, I'm just saying, if a new building is being built, you're gonna put a fire suppression system in it, right?
And that's-
So like, that would be like a good one here to put at 108. And I really think we need to focus in on this list today. We've been talking about this matrix for like 2 months. If we can just complete it, we're gonna have different opinions on the options, but we're not at that point yet. Let's just fill this out and get this kind of accomplished.
Can I suggest we remove interior redesign, interior remodel, only because those two things are categories that will be achieved.
Well,
Bad sir.
Bad sir.
Those two things will be achieved by other so I wouldn't talk about interior redesign, but if we say things like
Fixing classes.
fixing, interior classrooms, or also, when I think of like interior redesign, I think about if we put centralized core, if we
So
put
that's the
main
type of
office
stuff that we-
redirection, like we put those things and then we have achieved interior redesign. I don't think interior redesign is a standalone.
yeah, I took that off your list. I didn't know what
Yeah.
that meant.
Yeah.
So if relocate central services or whatever
Yeah.
is what that meant,
Yeah.
like I'd put that as a more detailed option.
Yeah.
Alright, so let's skip over those for the minute. So when we talk about gymnasium redesign, what are we actually talking about there? What are we needing to, or hoping to achieve with respect to the gym? Are we, hoping to get it to regulation size? Are we
Yeah.
hoping?
Bringing it up to elementary size, it's not regulation, it's, I'm trying to think of the term, it's not, because there's no regulation, it's, is it like minimal acceptable standard or something like?
So it has a safe buffer around it, so you never.
Safe buffer,
run into
the
walls.
side, yeah.
So it's enlarging
Gym
the
floor.
gymnasium.
So should I just call it,
A physical education quality floor.
gymnasium?
I think gymnasium redesign is fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, it serves what it is, you're gonna fix the gym.
Yeah.
That's what it's representing.
Well, there's two different things, fixing it and essentially building a new one.
Right, yeah, so that's my concern is that so if we were to stick with just the existing building,
Footprint.
we can't bring it up to this, we can't increase the size of it.
So that would be a
Right,
no
so
for
that'd be a no
repair
for
only
repair
and a
only.
yes for
Okay, so we'll
renovation,
just, okay.
right? And then a yes for a new
I
building.
would put,
I
I would
say
put no,
for
yes,
renovation,
yes.
Yes, for renovation.
No for renovation, it would be, because renovation and addition, in order to do that, even the minimal, you'd be adding on to, you
How
know.
much space do you need to add to make it work?
For what?
Suck all the core services into the gym. and-
Well, I just wasn't sure, is it just like a matter
What?
of knocking down
Yeah,
the space
that's fair.
behind it?
Is there a
No,
standard?
I
think it's the width too.
I wanna say it's at seven, it's about 300 or 400 square feet that we need to add to it, but like, in my mind, you could achieve it by bumping the front wall out and bumping the side wall, you know,
So a
like.
renovation could do
What,
it.
what do you need?
Well, I'm saying, only, when I say not repairs only, in my mind, that, we're bumping out, that's an
Bumping it out would
addition.
be an
But
addition.
It's not a huge addition,
Adding on to it.
but it's an addition.
But you could do a little bit
It
of,
would cost almost as much.
You might as well tear
I
it
mean,
down.
so is
start
there
over.
anything physically wrong with it, other than we feel it's too small?
No, but again, we haven't ranked these yet. We're
No,
just
I
talking
understand, I'm
about.
just trying to see, like, is it even, okay.
It's one of the deficiencies. Whether it's an important deficiency, we can
Right.
talk about. But it's
So
but
the
it's just-
second step after this, right, and I think what we need to understand is, once you identify all the deficiencies, figure out what options address them, then you can start deciding what deficiencies are important for us to fix. And if we choose the gym is not one of the important ones, then we can take that off of that consideration.
Sure, but if I think that if it's a matter of, we need 200 square feet, that's what, maybe looking at it, if we moved children out of GMS, I might have the space that I could turn into through reconfiguring, actually at the problem. So, just to help understand, like, can you solve it through other avenues, just trying to understand what we're looking for.
You may be able to solve it, but you have to define what you're trying to solve.
Well, that's what I'm
first.
gonna say, so like, if it's a matter of we need 400 square feet, that's 20 by 20. So if do we have 20 by 20 near the buildings in the room? Can we solve it by moving a classroom out and claiming some of the
Taking the
space?
stage out,
Just-
moving the gym back.
So in which
doesn't
case,
make
then
it wider.
reconfigure might work.
And also,
Just-
that's where an addition, so
Just think of
there's.
just think of the space in there. You potentially could lengthen the building. And the reason that is you can build walls out, and then you can add trusses of the same length that are there now, and bring it up.
That'd be an addition, though.
Well, he's talking about adding space,
You can't lengthen a
okay?
truss.
So, but you cannot add width without essentially rebuilding it, because you can't move walls away from the ends of the trusses.
Right.
So there's only really, essentially, if you wanna lengthen it, you could do it somewhat reasonably. If you wanna add width to it, it's a rebuild, it's a new structure.
Well, I think I agree with you. I think you can also add the length without even doing the addition. That's why I think renovation is impossible, right? Like, how, you could take the stage and make that gymnasium.
But I don't know,
Can't make
but
it
I
wider.
think,
You can't make it wider, but you can make it longer.
if I recall correctly, though, the width was an issue, right? It was width and length that were an issue.
Yeah.
Take it
So
away
is it
from
like no room
stage,
on the
it's gonna
sidelines,
create a
is it?
different problem.
Yeah, like,
Well, but again,
Does
we're
it?
talking about,
imagine a basketball court.
it's doable
Right,
under
right,
some.
right.
What?
Three-point
Anyone in
line
the
and
theater
out of
also
bounds.
uses
and
it
out of
as
bounds.
a
We can't forget that we also have this reconfigure, which is
But if we
the,
free up 10
moving
rooms,
seven
then
to
you
eight.
have 9 other ones you can work with. You can just dedicate one of those rooms.
We answered the question.
Can we,
Alright, let's go down this list here, rest, and look, we can argue these to death, these kind of.
wait, no, before we start the list, we need to agree on what the options are that we're going to consider.
They have 5 up there,
we have 5.
There's no place for the parents.
up there.
He's
So they
typing on the
added-
document
I'm
now.
typing it on the document. Yeah, sorry, I'm sure I can't even see it, but see, I added reconfigure after.
Make it
the
blue,
building.
like the rest
I
of
know,
them.
I don't.
There you go, now it's in there.
What are we voting on again?
And then ranking.
Nothing. No votes.
No ranking yet, just yet.
So
not
yes,
That's
you
another
can, no,
comment.
we-
We're saying yes or no?
That was built in the 70s, so.
So there's gonna be about 8, there's gonna be about 8,
1 to 5 or
They
1 to
stopped
10.
asbestos in 60.
For each of the,
they've moved most of these
Yeah,
buildings
so there's
out.
elements. Yeah.
okay.
Haven't they,
I'll get
they've
there.
abated most of that building by now.
So for the gymnasium
You do
redesign,
more
reconfiguring,
damage
so if
if
we
you
were to
abate that,
move.
no, I'm sorry, I'm gonna interrupt. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 options we should consider.
We're working with 5, Ron.
No.
Which
We
three
can't
do you think
keep
are
going
missing?
down these rabbit holes of 9 different options. We
Why
have to
not?
start narrowing it down, because that's our
No.
job. We came here as a committee to narrow this down.
Okay, but if you
No.
don't look at all of them, then
We-
you can't narrow them
We
down.
have 50 different reports.
Well, get over with.
Vote on what?
5 or 9?
Ron,
What
what
are
do you
they?
mean 9 options?
Which ones are
All right, here
missing?
they are. Repairs without the 1930s building. repairs with the 1930s building. Repairs without the 1930s building and moving 7 and 8.
No one's ever
Repair,
talked about the thirties building as being part of any option.
what's
The
that?
on-site insight report has it on it.
It's, in my mind, the 1930s building is part of a renovation.
Could be the SAU office.
Yes,
If you do a renovation option and don't include that, it'd be, I think, a mistake, right? Like, that's space that exists that you can claim, like, that would be part of a renovation in my mind.
But
We've added it as a
No.
need, the need to do something
Right.
with the thirties building.
Right.
It doesn't create subsets of different options.
Right, I think you're getting too granular with it. We could bring in 7 more portables. Is that an option too? Like,
if you want.
how far do you want to go with this?
Can we go
Tough to
down
stack
to
'em.
3 options we always
I think I need the committee to just, I need.
The
committee to
shipping
vote on
crates.
it. So,
We could do the shipping crates.
Kids
can
in
I get,
crates.
all right, so I'm gonna take a vote of the committee. All in favor of sticking,
That's
oh,
the
sorry,
reconfiguring.
I need a motion.
Restructuring within the school.
I'd like to make a motion that we take a vote on the options that are available to us. The number of options.
Specifically which ones?
I would recommend you define the number of options.
Yeah,
we're gonna discuss.
Guys,
are you making a motion for 5 or?
But
If we're gonna vote on any number, guess what?
Insinuate.
25's a number. Pick one.
I think the motion I'm looking for is whether we're
5
gonna
or
go
not.
with these 5 or whether we're gonna add the additional.
I'm gonna make a motion that we go with the 5 that are defined already.
I'll second that motion.
Discussion.
Go ahead.
How does moving 7 and 8 fit into any of those?
Reconfigure,
It's in reconfigure.
Yeah.
Reconfigure what?
reconfigure the
That's what
schools.
reconfigure means. We're gonna reconfigure the grades.
So redistribution maybe, I don't
You want me
know.
to call redistribution?
Call it whatever you want. Like, we all know what it is.
Restructure,
Redistribution's good. That's not the box.
No,
you're redistributing kids throughout the school
I
buildings.
understand that, but I mean, it's
Just
not,
move 7,
it's
8, move up to
it's not how to look at it.
But that's right there
There's
now.
no,
But it would be more
It should
than
be
six.
across the top,
and then
not
reconfigure.
on
Just
vertical.
as a heading.
Right.
What? It is across the
Could-
top.
Can I ask a clarifying question? I have no votes, I'm watching the process.
Now it's redistribution.
This is the GMS matrix, so we're really talking about the building of GMS. So I'm guessing, and I go back to my whole, when it's renovation, that somewhat assumes that a reconfiguration is necessary, like,
Well,
what's gonna be?
it doesn't though. I don't.
No.
No, but I'm saying, when we're talking about the building of Griffin Memorial School, what
if-
does
if we
moving
move-
7 and 8 to the high
Because
school?
we-
It's not just moving 7 and 8, it's moving grades, right? You move 7 and 8 to the high school, you move 3 and 4 to the middle school,
Yeah,
and then
but
you
again,
have K
I don't
through.
understand how that gives us any different answers on addressing the building of
I
GMS.
think because the building, what needs to be done and what, you may
Changes.
abandon part of the building of not using it.
Right.
Or you
I
get
think
rid
we
of
get rid of the
portables.
portables.
Well,
Or, yeah, or.
you
And
might
still
also-
abandon part of the building.
You may be able to move the kids within
Yeah,
the
but I'm
building and
saying-
free up a core, like,
That will be told to us.
But I think what
In the
Dan's
answers.
point is, if I can just help him clarify,
Yeah.
and you can do what you want, it's your committee here, is that if you were to move 7th and 8th grade up to Campbell, and then you were to move 3 and 4 up to Memorial, you still have the existing building that you're gonna have to renovate, there's no way around
No,
it, right?
I think at that point you can go to the repairs only option.
But I think there's still renovation, like, for example, you're moving the SAU out of the high school at that point, right? You have to renovate some space in that building for the SAU.
No, you don't, you move the portables.
But my office is gonna be the size of a classroom, like, you gotta do something in there. It might not be expensive, but you have to acknowledge that there's gotta be
But in-
some sort of renovation. So I think for what Dan is saying, you don't have to do this is fine, have the 5 here, is that like, if you're gonna move around those grades, like, you may not touch the footprint, there might be no additions or whatever, but we have to acknowledge that there's something gonna be happening on the internal of that building to adjust, right? Like, you're not gonna continue to do OT, if you have less grades in GMS, you're not gonna do OT, PT in that weird space they're doing.
Right.
You're gonna renovate that space, again, it might be minimal cost, but a renovation.
We could put a line here that says, removes portables.
those are the.
Repair only?
Those
No.
are AC.
Renovation? Probably not. Renovation additions? Yes, yeah,
clarifying,
like,
exactly.
and it leads us to the conclusion
No.
that reconfiguration
See,
may
that's-
be necessary. But reconfiguration doesn't necessarily have to be as part of checking off what has to happen
A
with
far
the GMS
advantage
building.
with the 7th through 12th, but this ship has sailed, right, is if there was some way to get to 2 buildings, 2 school buildings, that is the massive advantage of 7 through 12, right? But like, I think as we discussed last time, there's no, it would be foolish to try and get to 2 buildings right now, right? Like even, we're not judging the middle school project, but you did put all that money into the middle school project, right? Like, you're not gonna turn around and tear that building down or rebuild, do a brand new
Why
K
not?
through 6
All the
building.
other
All right, so we have a motion at hand
Yeah,
here.
I'm actually not convinced that the long-term benefit wouldn't be tearing down both
Maybe it
buildings
would.
and building.
I feel like the place is hot.
All in
so-
all in favor of keeping this to the 5 options that are on this list, please raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. All opposed.
Non-vote.
1, yeah, I know you're not opposed.
I'm not.
7 and 1. All right, so we're sticking with the 5. So let's continue moving forward with this. So for the purposes, we will just consider, I understand that it may be duplicative, but we'll consider the redistribution as the option of moving 7th and 8th and redistributing grades.
Yeah, I'm just still confused, so I'll watch, but like,
Because ultimately.
I don't know like why that's, like, redistribution, does that cover the concrete flat work? It has nothing
No,
to do
but
with
it
the
might,
concrete flat work.
it might open up your support suite expansion, it might provide space for centralization of core service.
So like so like,
That's a renovation.
That, we've already accepted that if we redistribute, you might need to renovate.
We had
so
ta- yeah.
it's implied. You can renovate without
But that was like
redistributing.
even part of the survey, right? Like if you're gonna redistribute grades, knowing full well, like remember it was in that paragraph that we wrote that you will have to make some upgrades to the buildings. And so that may mean adding a wall to break up a classroom into office space or something. So in my mind, that is fine to say, like for office redesign, if you all of a sudden have all this available space because you moved out 2 grades,
Yeah.
you can redesign the office.
Okay, no, I get all that.
Yeah,
I'm just,
so that would be a
I'm
yes
just
to me.
wondering how that gets us to a different conclusion than just running it on renovation. repair.
Because you don't have the space.
Because you don't.
Because things become a
Because you
maybe.
don't have the space.
Always add
Or
another
yes.
element if we need to.
In my mind, renovation does nothing to the other 2 schools, and it's only renovating GMS.
So you have less space available.
You don't have the space available
Gotcha.
if you don't move those kids out.
Okay, yeah, I was assuming that that was in the renovation.
yeah, didn't mean to do that. It's this one. I got it. There you go. Okay, restroom upgrade redesign. Can we just talk about that real quick? What are we achieving with that? Like,
It's pretty big, so that could be broken down into a few things, which is bringing some bathrooms, any bathrooms, into full ADA compliance. It would be
so do we keep accessibility? Does that fall under accessibility?
it's in one case it's accessible.
Like there's one of those.
I think it would because the on-site inside details talk about like restroom fixtures, restroom ceiling. So I think that's the upgrade portion of that. If you're talking about ADA compliance, I think that falls in the accessibility. So I would be in favor of taking that line off.
Yeah, so we need to upgrade some to compliance, and all current, I hate the term, but they're called gang bathrooms, need at minimum a cosmetic refresh, and at maximum they need a redesign. So for instance, right now the way they're designed, you can walk down a hallway and have a straight visual shot just into a gang bathroom. There's no built-in privacy features. There's
no
There's no door.
what?
There's no door.
There is a
door's
door,
open.
but there's also small little humans that can't necessarily open the door on their own.
Missed that
It's not how
portion.
you would design
It's not how you design. Most of the, if you like in a new build now,
Right.
actually a lot of times they don't have doors. What they have is they have the
It's like a wall.
yeah they have
Little
the
partitions,
offset. They have the offset,
Offset walls
cinder block
and
walls.
around the corner.
That
So I think like for restroom upgrade, like obviously repair only, it's a no, right? I think if you were to renovate that building, you would not tackle this project, right? Like you would just leave it as. I think if you're starting to go down the renovation addition road, right, especially if you're gonna add or renovate very specific things, I think some of the bathrooms would get upgraded and redesigns, cause you're gonna do that anyways. And obviously a new building is a yes.
So I think that the renovation would be a maybe though.
I think maybe's fine.
I'd go no.
Depends on
I'd
the
go
specific.
no. Maybe yes. Yes.
I agree with that.
And then the redistribution would be a maybe. I think the redistribution is
It's
kind of a
definitely
lot
a
of
maybe,
maybes.
because you got more
If we've
adults
gained
in that
space.
building too.
Right.
I'd give it a yes.
Well, it's a
I
maybe
wouldn't
because
necessarily give it a
it
yes.
depends on the cost. If you end up with an
Because if we need to-
$80,000 bathroom, people
If
might
we
say,
need,
"Ugh,
oh,
I
not,
don't
not
want
just
to."
cost, but where we're gaining space may not necessarily be,
Like, for example, if you were to put the SAU in the 30s building with a reconfiguration, you're gonna have to upgrade some bathrooms, because we can't run down to the front office.
No, there's a bathroom in
every
there.
time. Well, I don't even know if it's operational, so.
actually,
You're gonna-
there is an ADA compliant bathroom on the second floor,
Of the
down
thing.
a non-ADA compliant hallway, but you
So-
can get there.
I would imagine.
Without an elevator.
upgrading
Without an elevator.
And 12 stairs to get
Probably
there.
hasn't been used
And a
in
death
40
ramp.
years, might be part of that renovation, in that situation.
Probably could be fixed if
Yeah.
there's pipes going
Yeah.
there.
So, yeah.
Okay, so that covers that. So nurse's office upgrade redesign. So,
I'd go no, no, yes, yes.
Well,
Well, it's a
I
locker
disagree.
room, right?
You can upgrade, in a repairs, you can upgrade the nurse's office.
what do we
What about
need
the
to?
space?
What's wrong with the nurse's office? I need
Yeah,
more
we need to
detail on
talk
that.
about that.
Well, there's no ventilation. It's a former locker room. There's no privacy for any medical care. There is a
Probably
non-ADA
no room
compliant
for
bathroom.
medical
There's not enough storage. The storage is actually the shower that's been cemented over on the drain pipe, so that we actually half jokingly, for privacy for the storage, put a shower curtain. Severely undersized.
If you were to ask me, it's a no, yes, yes, yes. Probably no, or maybe.
I would say repair, probably.
Where
no.
it currently is, I'm not sure renovation gets us to
Well, you have to
where we
remember
want
that the repair only option is to repair it as it is, right? So
So you're just,
kind.
yeah,
in kind.
in kind, new paint on the wall and.
The reason why I say
furniture.
the renovation
LEDs.
doesn't get us there also is because of where it currently is and where it was in the addition. It is a cinder block fortress, so there's not much chance to even redesign the current space, and even if you do, the totality of the current space is undersized for an
But I
elementary
think
nurse's room.
that, and I don't mean to argue. with
No, no,
you,
no.
And I don't mean to go down the rabbit hole of like, what do each of these things mean, right? But when I hear renovation, it means you're not changing the footprint of the building, right, as it is. But if there's things in the interior of the building you need to change because you're doing work, you're gonna change it. And this is just my opinion, that nurse's office desperately needs to be changed, it's not acceptable, period.
Can it be relocated?
So if you were to renovate, you may change an existing space and turn that into the nurse's office, right? Like
So it's
hypothetically.
a maybe then. The renovation's a maybe.
Well,
Definitely no on a repair.
Well, it
I
definitely
think-
could solve the problem, so. it would
But
be
we don't,
yes.
but the one thing that we don't know is with a renovation, when we're working within the
Well, that's
45
where,
walls.
like, I
We
don't
can't,
wanna-
we
but I
cannot
don't wanna
renovate
go
the
down
current
whole-
space.
I don't wanna go
Well, see, I don't
down
necessarily
that
agree with
road.
that. What's on the other side of the wall?
The gym,
Yeah.
That's
A
only on one
hallway?
side.
a
There wasn't
hallway,
a conference room on the?
What?
There wasn't a room on one end?
there's the
The teacher's room,
mail
isn't there?
room, which is part of the other locker room that's off the gym.
Remember, you gotta also look at these, assuming
That's still in there.
that there's 10 classrooms available in 7 and 8.
That's reconfigure, I'm just talking renovation right now, right? Like at that renovation option, if you're gonna go in and you're gonna start doing stuff to the inside of the building, and you're remember, we're like prioritizing, we're not prioritizing, but we're talking about like what you would go after.
So
Nurses upgrade, you would go after. Like, I think it's one of those things you would go after.
Yeah,
Right,
I-
because it would
right.
rank high.
The question would be,
And not in its current location,
Yeah,
elsewhere in the
it's part
building
of
that you
renovation.
said.
Right, but if,
I-
to Ron's point, if there's classrooms available, you
But that's
may be able
later.
to work that out.
That'd be
Yeah,
in
that's fine, and
that'd be in
that'd
redistribution.
answer. Like, that's why it might be a maybe over there, but if you're renovating the interior of that building, like unless I'm totally off on what people are defining as renovation, you're fixing the stuff in the footprint of the building, that's not successful.
But we don't,
Correct.
but I think with a renovation, the reason why I would say maybe on that is we don't know until we actually look at it, whether or not we can reconfigure spaces appropriately to actually achieve that for the nurse's office.
And that's fair, that's fair.
So I think I would consider that a maybe, and then I would say yes, and then maybe, I think redistribution is gonna be a maybe around the.
and realistically, if you had to, you could, it needs a block wall, but they've got saw cutters. You can get through it. You can put in an access door.
Isn't the point of this to say whether it can or not with the renovation? We're
Correct.
not discussing what the renovation
Right.
is.
Right, so the question is,
It could be solved with the renovation, but we're not going into what the renovation entails yet.
You
If
might
that-
be
if
able to
that's-
take the gymnasium and
if that's one of the
convert
two options, then we
gymnasium
can
into a whole
discuss
bunch
that.
of spaces that you need tear down some of the not so great construction and put a new gymnasium there. That may be the easiest route.
But for the matrix, we're not discussing
But
that.
I would say no for, I think we just need to like,
Yeah.
get rid of the, like for repair, no, it's not gonna meet the need.
I would say renovation, it could,
Yeah,
but we're not
It's,
discussing.
that's why it's a maybe.
I agree.
All right, centralization of core services. Let's just rehash what that actually means.
Yeah, so right now we have the core services being main office, nurse, counseling suite, related services such as OT, PT, speech, that service basically the entirety of the school. Right now, they are not centralized. In fact, they are kind of offshoot. So I will use a standard of a new building. In a standard of a new building, those are all centralized, close together, and also equidistant to all students where they are.
So one question would be, that's where the main entrance is. To centralize, what would that do to the main entrance?
Well, so that's, I think that what you're getting to is, even for a renovation, that's probably unlikely because there's not enough in that area to actually centralize all
Right, I
these
mean,
things.
unless the option is, let's build to the other side, and now it's in the center because we added it that way.
Yeah.
Like,
Gymnasium.
I'm sorry,
What's the
core
other-
services, you're talking just the office folks, or are you talking like,
No, core services. Core services are what I assume that are services that
PT, OT?
that can or do service the entirety of the school.
So that doesn't necessarily have to be near the office.
No, it should be central to the school.
Okay.
The main goal, the main goal
I would,
is
yeah, those things
Yeah,
are separate in my mind.
now.
all right,
It's not at CHS and it's not at
Right.
LMS.
A lot of those services in more modern schools are not by the front office. They're
Right.
in a different part of the building because they are.
That's why I'm saying, like, I think we should separate those two things, right? Like, core services, the OT, the PT, all that stuff. That should be together somewhere, but it doesn't necessarily have to be with the main office.
well, I think the other thing
100%.
too to consider is which population tends to receive the most services? Is it the younger kids, is it the older kids? Does it have to be centralized? If 75% of my students are first and second graders, then
But that
shouldn't-
changes year to year.
Shouldn't it be closer then to the younger kids? Like, then.
This year, what about next year, or the 5 years
Well, I
from
mean,
now?
we could take a look at a 5-year trend, see like,
It-
out of every 5 years,
Well, but a lot of
within
those
this.
You
services.
can't keep
are
moving it
created-
every 5
all
years.
No,
five
no,
all
but-
5 grades equally service
Okay.
counseling and social work. All OT and PT, while again they may see more in one grade than another, but they do service. all
And
Well,
those
five
services
grades.
would
Yeah.
follow the kids typically as they progress too, right? OTPT.
Well, some
I
of
mean,
them
hopefully
haven't-
they graduate from it.
Hopefully,
but
yeah. The hope is that
may.
they
All right, so again, repairs only. We would have already achieved this if we could, as it currently is configured, right? So it's a no.
that's enough.
Renovation.
Do we, good question though, do we know that though? Are there, could you
agree,
say,
I
this
don't-
block of
say
4
maybe.
teachers, I'm sorry, we have to take these 4 classrooms or whatever, this is gonna become core and we're kicking you over that way. Can you, is there, no, it's
No,
not an
you
ability
can't,
to just,
Yeah, I hear what you're saying.
I mean, that way
I-
it's not really a major thing, it's just,
Yeah, I think in
Wait,
the
wouldn't
way
we have done that by
it's-
now?
the way it's configured right now, it's not.
sometimes there's an emotional attachment to people's classrooms.
Oh, no one, I don't think anyone's allowed to have an emotional attachment in that school, right? Because
No.
you move
Put 'em on-
people
put
pretty
'em on a cart.
regularly.
Like what the three for example, where the 3 counselors are right now,
Mm-hmm.
or 2 counselors in mental health, whatever their
Yeah,
designations are.
social worker.
You can turn that space into a classroom.
Okay.
You can remove the walls, right? So if you, like in theory, if that was the size of the classroom, like then yeah, I think you start going down that road. But like the 3 of them, their space, they're pretty cramped.
Tiny.
It's tiny, you could not put an 18-kid classroom in that space, right?
18 kids.
What else you got down there?
Well, and
You're
also
saying
the other
it's
thing
in
too is that if
closet,
you find
can't
if you
put
find
them in
the if you
space.
find the center of the school right now, including the portables,
Well, it's the library. It would be
it's
my-
kind of the library.
Yeah, and then like you could turn the library into the centrally located spot, then where are you putting your library? Like, you know.
Well, in, for me, it would be, having all of that centralized would be a nice to have, but we don't have to have
We're
that.
not ranking yet, Peter.
Well, we're not
We're
ready
getting
to go.
there.
But the question is like logistically with shifting and whatnot, can we achieve?
Right.
And that's where I'm going.
You'd have to have
I don't
a
think
plan
you
to what
can.
you're gonna do and then
I think if they
decide
could,
walls
they
you're gonna
would.
move.
One question,
I know your
with respect to
predecessor.
core
I'm not gonna do
services,
that.
are you including the cafeteria?
No,
No.
This is student services,
student services,
like physical therapy,
physical therapy, occupational therapy,
special-
speech, language,
Where
counseling.
does the cafeteria come up?
It's right it's actually pretty central.
You
No,
mean
but-
like
not-
where is it on the list? It was on the top section. It was
Okay.
just, yeah.
Okay.
They talked about like upgrading the hood and the kitchen
And the equipment, yeah.
Didn't we do
I think you're a yes in redistribution, if you ask me, not a maybe. I think that's a yes.
What's this?
In the redistribution for that one,
But
I think that's a yes. Because you now have the space to figure it out.
Yeah, I think it's a yes.
You think so?
Oh, yeah. Because we were just talking about in the repair, it's not an option because you know you don't have the space, but once
But I guess.
2 grades are out of that building, you do have the space.
But 2 grades are out of the building, but kindergarten's moved into the building.
Many of those kids?
A few.
I think you can
Repairing could
Yeah.
fix it.
Okay.
Big deal.
Alright, I'm fine with that.
Thanks.
Incorporation of portable classrooms, so I think it's probably a no, yes, yes, yes.
I think it's a maybe with redistribution. I think you really have to figure stuff out, right? Like, again, using footprint as it is, on a redistribution, you are taking out 2 grades, right? So let's say between 8 to 10 classrooms, right? SAU's not gonna take up 8 to 10 classrooms, right? You are gonna bring in some, I just think you don't know. You'd have to go down the road.
I think at worst, it's a maybe, but at best, I
The
think it's a yes.
library.
I was thinking yes.
The library.
I think-
I'm
I
okay
think you
with
can
that
go-
analysis of a maybe.
The library could go.
I think maybe only because
Yeah, SAU.
think about even till we've gotten
SAU
here.
and library.
You've
squeeze
already
you in
said
there.
like, well, we can
I
use
don't
it to
think-
increase
Can
the
I-
gym, we can use it
Can I
to
ask a
increase the
point of
nurse, you could, like,
clarification?
Yes.
Right.
Are repairs only, does that include the 1930s building or not?
Nope,
Well,
that's
that's a
line
guy.
103.
What?
That's line 103.
Because you can repair what we have without repairing 1930s, or you can repair it with the 1930s.
Right. And then that informs the reconfiguration question too, and, right.
No,
I think
but-
Ron's question though is, if we incorporated the 30s building, would we be able to say, yes, we can definitively achieve this, right?
Yeah, that's the problem. The 1930s building needs to be another
But
option.
I
But
think
at-
honestly, if we do the 1930s building, it's gonna be the SAU.
So
Have-
I don't necessarily agree that it's in it as a need. In my mind, addressing the 1930 building is incorporated in the renovation and incorporated in the renovation and addition options, right? Like, if you're gonna do a renovation of that building and you're not gonna renovate the 30s building, that doesn't make sense to me.
It can be, it can be done in the repairs option. In fact, that's in the price.
Agreed.
I think one of the things that gets.
So we should be
forgotten
considering it
about-
like it's a part of the repairs.
That
I think it's
one-
actually in
So
one of those
therefore,
lines.
that- One of those will change from
Yeah.
no to yes then.
Is that with the 30s building, and this is small, and I wish Dan had stepped out, but we can drag him back in this conversation as he walks back in. They actually used the 30s building for storage.
Yes, there was an
Right.
active decision several years
You know
ago, the
what?
first CIP,
Junk is in
to
there.
do that.
Yes, I do.
But they
it
used to have
is-
like a knockbox or
It is also
like-
used for storage, like there's legitimate
Yep.
stuff in there as well.
There used to be
So,
a trailer out back
If you
storage.
were to renovate that space, and turn it into classrooms or offices or
Mhm.
whatever the intent is.
You're saying we need a
you-
shed?
You're gonna need some place for storage, right? If you're taking
Cut the
this
portables.
for, but that might be, right? Like,
Yeah.
if there's 4
They make great
classrooms
ones.
there, and you take the 4-pack in the portables, right, and you move them into the 30s building, then all the stuff being stored in there, and it may not be 4 classrooms full, but like, the stuff you're gonna keep needs to get into a storage, whether
It's a shed or it's, yeah, something.
or a portable,
Yeah.
who knows? But like, it's not like empty, like I just,
No,
it's
Um,
not
it's not.
used.
I think we're down in the bug dust too far still, because we just gotta, so like, you look at the 30s building and say, a repair. A repair to that building isn't gonna fix any of the ADA, it's not gonna make it accessible, it's not gonna fix,
Which is why it was turned into
Not gonna make what
storage.
accessible?
huh?
What?
It's
There's no
not gonna
elevator.
meet ADA
Who?
compliance.
What isn't?
The
If we
1930s.
just
A
do repairs
repair.
only.
No.
No, that's what I'm saying. So when you get right there, you just
No,
say
no, no, no,
repair, it's not
I
gonna fix
disagree
it.
with you. I disagree with you. They've got $1,000,003 in there to put into the 1930s building. That's what that report
She said she
says.
wasn't
Oh.
addressing accessibility though.
Yeah,
There's no,
No, she says, not, the whole 1930s building, they're reconfigured.
But see, I heard her, I heard what you heard last night,
Yeah.
but I disagree with it. Because if you do what she put in here to do for the 30s building, that's not repair.
That's a renovation.
That's a renovation.
it's gonna
Yes,
be
agreed.
an expensive renovation, because
You're
under
gonna put an elevator in
asbestos
there.
above the ceiling tiles and,
Right.
just an elevator, just with electric and infrastructure for that. and everything
Well, you need an
else to
elevator
renovate
just
the
to get
building.
into it.
well, there was, the first facilities committee made the conscious decision to not renovate it because of the costs. They walked through the building like, yeah, we'd start taking these ceilings down, now we have all these pipes wrapped in things we don't wanna just talk about. So there was a consciousness that they reallocated, like they actually had, I believe the building department came in and reclassified the occupancy of that space to allow for storage, so that they could get rid of the storage containers for that purpose. And the easiest way to use the space was to turn it into storage, because you didn't have to worry about the elevator, you didn't have to worry about all the other code compliance things. So I'm really cautious about, reluctant even, to think about putting built offices in there, because now all of a sudden we have to do a lot of other stuff. And storing textbooks or broken, hopefully you're not storing a lot of broken equipment, we're getting rid of that. But
But
storage.
storage is the cheapest form of construction you can put up. And what we're looking at is, that's prime space, you're not gonna take that building down, the Heritage Commission is never gonna let you even think about it.
Right.
So, right now, it's just sitting there with a bunch of junk that could be stored very inexpensively in containers or
Sure.
pole barn
But
style
to Carrie's
building.
point though, it's.
But renovating it is gonna be, you're gonna have to gut it back to studs, because all the stuff that you have in there, it's gonna be more expensive.
I don't agree with
Well,
that.
but that would fall under, either way, that would fall under the renovation.
It's not a repair.
No, renovation's a different cat altogether. Renovation is gutting the building.
Of the 1930s building?
No, the rest of the building. 1930, the renovation's $24 million.
If you use that definition.
Yeah, if you use it.
Well, that's
I
my-
renovated
that's
my
my problem,
kitchen and
is-
it didn't,
You didn't gut it.
I didn't have to gut it, I just had to
Right.
do stuff.
And that's where your prioritization comes in on a renovation, right? If you chose renovation as the option, you're gonna look at all these things and we're gonna start prioritizing and say, all right, if we do all of them, it's out of our budget.
Right.
So what are the most important things we need to do achieve in this renovation?
Lighting, ceilings, paint, floor finishes, heating.
Right.
You're gonna
You're
start
gonna prioritize
ranking
them
out
and you're gonna
that
say, okay, now my budget's not 26 million, it's 12
I
million
make,
within the footprint.
within the footprint.
I'll make
Or-
you,
That's a renovation.
I'll make you a
Take
deal.
that gymnasium.
In
put
the
all your cores
repairs,
there,
the repairs
Take this
only,
piece off the
If
building,
we
put a
assume the
brand new
19
gymnasium and storage right there.
if the 1930s building rehab is included in repairs,
That,
then I will agree to keep those 5 there. That should be an assumption in the repairs only, in accordance with
I want to put a two-story building there.
on-site, inside.
Was that in their first 5 years? Because if it is, it's already on the list.
Available for
Yes,
sale.
it is.
Then it's already on the list. I copied it straight from here. Everything from line 1 to 89 is straight out of the on-site inside board, word for word.
And take this off.
Okay, so I wanna keep going, cause I really would like to get through this.
But just, does everybody agree that repairs only includes rehab of the 1930s building?
I know she put it in there, I disagree, what she described.
I think we should leave it in there and we can decide whether it stays or goes.
We have a
Well,
line down there.
the
That-
reason
that
why
comes
Ron's
into the
asking-
prioritization.
The reason why Ron's asking that is because at the end of the day, when
I don't,
if he advocates for repairs only at $4 million, he's saying that we will be able to do all of the repairs plus be able to completely rehab the 30s building for $4 million.
It'd be fine.
Based $5 million, based on.
But that doesn't
We
necessarily,
agree.
yep.
I think we can
But
just
it
come to a
doesn't necessarily
consensus.
address what you're gonna do with the stuff in the 1930s building.
Well, so, but we
don't-
also.
We don't need
It's
an
called
answer
a
to that
dumpster.
today either, though.
I
We
don't
also
disagree,
have,
but I think
you
they have
know,
student
I know we
records.
don't, I know there was conversation
I think they have
about
student records.
asbestos and stuff like that. She
Aren't
said,
there
I have.
over there?
I don't know,
made
I've
no
seen like a lot of
inquiry into-
furniture and
David
old file
told,
cabinets.
They were
Dave told me
talking
the
about
only
filing
place
cabinets
that
and
says
everything else on
asbestos is in the floor tiles, and in some remote places they have not seen in the ceiling.
I'm sure you got lead paint. 1930s, you probably have lead paint.
No,
But the SAU people,
no.
they're not gonna be chewing on the
Don't lick the
windowsills.
wall.
Excess.
The windows
Oh, you don't know about that.
The windows have all been replaced.
And that can be encapsulated with paint.
Yep. Yeah.
I don't
So-
know that
Swing
we're,
on the window.
I would agree with Ron. It's in the on-site insight, and like I said, I put everything in the first 5 years of on-site insight in those top lines.
it already says yes up there, so I think that that's covered then,
All
right?
right, so repairs includes.
Includes the 30s building.
1930s, okay.
All right, office redesign. We gotta start moving at a quicker clip.
Whose
Dan.
office?
Yeah.
Main office.
The main office.
All right, and what do we
Give me
trying
the
to achieve?
details.
I'm gonna start little. How about windows in the offices of the principal and assistant principal? For safety reasons.
I think they're overrated because they would need to have bars on them.
Keep you in there.
What do the windows achieve?
There's
What?
Like,
Sight line.
oh, to outside?
Yeah, or any, outside my office.
To the hallway.
To the hallway, to the main, I mean, a true office, an ideal office redesign would get me and the assistant principal sightline to the exterior.
But
The outside
don't,
of
do
the
people
building.
in the office have a sight line to the exterior?
Hmm?
Aren't there people that check people in and out that have a sight line to the exterior?
Yeah,
Shouldn't you be walking the building so you wouldn't have sight line to the exterior?
when I need to be in my office, I
Okay.
should have a sight line to anything other than the interior walls of my office.
So I appreciate the feel on that, I don't necessarily agree. So if we have people, adults who have sight lines.
Again,
but
this is not an agreement.
Sure, but it would change how I view on that, whether,
It sounds like a safety issue.
but we're implying
Sounds
that
like a
nobody
cheap
has
issue.
access.
Well,
to
repair
it.
is comes gonna to an fix office, that window. Like, I know what Dan's saying about windows, I get it. But I think, especially, no offense, Dan, but especially Maura's office, like, I don't know how you have two adults in that office, let alone.
Yeah,
it's like-
again,
Right, the space is.
I wasn't saying we need to redesign the office just because I don't have windows. It is
You're
not
starting
even,
with one
that's
A
the
repair is
starting
not gonna
point.
do that.
Right.
Yeah,
A repair
not gonna do-
only does not address
I
what's
think a
needed in the office.
renovation could maybe address some of the office, like, configuration stuff.
So can it be achieved within the current footprint, or do you need to start
I
knocking
think it
over?
could.
Okay.
We would also
Maybe
need safety
it can be done
upgrades, so
with
for
the
instance,
renovation.
the way it line, we don't have contained access to outside visitors. We
I agree.
contain them in the
That should be
vestibule,
maybe.
but then once we open that door,
That's why I voted against it to
I
begin
think
with,
so,
I think.
yeah.
That should be maybe.
we're saying
Because
yes.
They had people trail out those doors,
Yeah,
do not.
because you
follow.
got 10
Yeah.
classrooms,
You spent 80 grand.
We're saying yes.
you have,
Cause I think you would take the OT, PT space and expand the
Right.
office.
remember, if you.
Wish I had a minute.
Renovation, you could put yes, not
In the
maybe.
in the redistribution, you end up with the space of 14 classrooms.
I don't know how we're getting to 14, but I think it's a yes for this.
Oh, here,
I don't wanna.
We're not, we can't talk about that right now.
We're not disagreeing.
We're
what
not
do you
gonna,
mean?
We got yes.
Why not?
because we're
We
working
started
this.
at 10.
I just wanna, I'm gonna ask you a question. You move two grades out, that's 5, times 2,
Nope, it's 4.
4, okay, 4 times 2 is 8.
Yeah.
The 1930s building's 4,000 square feet, equivalent to 4 classrooms.
But you can do that without moving kids out.
They were talking about putting the SIU and not using.
We said yes to this one. I don't know why we're discussing it.
Yeah.
Can we go to the next
That's
slide?
I wanna respond, it is, it's like moving 14 classrooms out there.
Okay. Creation of small group individual learning spaces. No.
No. I think
How
no,
many?
no.
I would say, in a renovation or renovation addition, I think you could create that. Just we're gonna carve up some space.
But you're gonna suffer, somebody's gonna suffer, right? Like, they've carved it up as much as they can right now.
Yeah, I think.
See, I think renovation is a maybe, and we won't know until you see what
The
the
renovation.
What the
redistribution,
renovation is.
what the redistribution
That's
is,
fine,
and
maybe's fine.
what
Yeah,
you've,
that's fine.
what else you have going on there. That will be a determination.
I think you're a yes
Much
there
later
too,
date.
though. Not a maybe on the last one.
I
I
think
you're
you're,
a yes on the redistribution.
Yeah.
you think so?
Yeah, because you'll free up space.
Yep.
The whole
Same-
point of
same
freeing-
concept.
We just don't know how much we're gonna ultimately free
But
up.
this is
though.
where the
Agreed.
classroom space,
All
like,
right,
that's.
fine.
But you're looking at each individual issue on its own,
Right.
right? Like, you gotta look at it on its own and say,
That's fair.
okay,
We get
and
there with
does it
repair.
fix
Then
this
we get there with
one,
renovation.
I'm fixing this one thing, can I do it with this option?
All right, classroom storage.
Is that for individual classrooms or an overall storage room for all classrooms?
Desks and chairs or books? That's storage within classrooms.
So somebody.
So-
Yours is
no,
but
yes,
she-
yes, yes, yes,
she
yes.
got allowances for, classroom furniture for storage.
Yep, I did see that in there.
But do we have space for that though?
She had what did she have?
She had an allowance for storage cabinets, but I don't know, do we have space though? 'Cause we're already,
What's that size?
I'm gonna actually allow for the hypothetical that we gain back some square footage with an HVAC upgrade. Yeah, so there's many of them that have the large floor-based units.
Yeah,
That
yeah,
floor
right,
space,
yes.
so I'll say yes to that one. I would agree.
Repair only is not to change the
Nobody
HVAC,
counts
it's
from
to
friends
upgrade,
going
or
down.
to replace
Your
what's
first
there.
one's all no's, your second is maybes, your
well,
third is
don't,
probably
no,
yes.
please don't. We're getting there. Let's just finish it though, please. All right. Support suite expansion.
No. What does support
Maybe
suite
if-
expansion mean?
That-
Well, this is
That's
also
the
kind of
office.
covered in the core, the centralization of core services.
It's repetitive.
Yes.
Well, where,
Support
Talking
suite
about
expansion.
The answer could be maybe.
But we're
I wanna know what it is. I don't know what it is.
It's like it is.
It's counseling.
But that's, yeah, it comes under centralization of core
It's your
service.
centralization of core services.
So it's the same,
It's
yeah.
repetitive.
Yeah.
So
I
take that
mentioned
line.
it in the central.
So what is speech is speech expansion a similar thing then? Would that be part of the centralization of
I
core
would,
services?
I would say it's similar to that.
It's similar to the central, yeah.
So
Or actually, to be honest with you, I may remove or highlight centralization. This is where I talked about where some of the individual items are gonna
Do you want to do
get us,
centralization / expansion?
I know what he's gonna say, go for it.
get rid of the centralization of core services because it's been achieved by J Suite redesigned speech services. You know, this is again where I said some of those are categories that would be achieved.
I think it's an either.
Yeah, but are we, when we look at these though, we may say, okay, well, we can't prioritize expanding them, but we can centralize, you know what I mean?
Or you could look at it two different ways, which is centralization has nothing to do with the redesign and expansion.
Right. Can we
That
make
means
it-
moving them into a central location. Has nothing to do with it. And then
Right.
we can
Because-
address
Right.
without centralizing. Just
You want them
address-
bigger,
Yeah.
which
I
is
think-
like
I
a
think we
different
can-
ask
So
than
first I would-
centralized.
Well, and here's where I'd say, does a renovation centralize? Maybe. Does a renovation allow for support suite expansion? I would say maybe, but a redistribution, that's where we can say yes, because we can use Ron's number of, I think it's up to 22 classrooms now, it has an inflationary factor. It started at 10, it was up to 14, so I thought there was an inflationary factor.
So are we saying, are we gonna combine support and speech, or are we keeping them separate?
Wait,
Because I
what?
think we agree that we should still keep them in here, because centralization
I would keep them
versus
separate, because
expansion.
maybe you can achieve one, but not the other.
Nice,
Okay.
low.
Yeah, it's two different debts. Centralizing is getting them all together in a centralized location. Expanding them can be anywhere in the building, just giving them more space to work.
Alright, so we said no,
I
right?
think there's.
Renovation was,
No, if you don't have the space to do it now, it's not happening.
Well, if you move classes out, well,
well,
yeah.
it
that's
keeps
the
being
other
a maybe, right?
I think it's a no.
I think it's a maybe.
If you could give them more space now, we would.
I'll go back to repairs only, you get, if you, do the 1930s building, you got 4,000 square feet.
Yeah, it is, because it's in that first 5 years of the report, so it's in the top
It
section.
needs to at least be a maybe.
Okay.
I would agree.
Yep.
I know I said that in repair. I would say it was a no.
Ron is saying that we would. we're
Since the
including
30s buildings
repair only,
imply-
that the
Since the 30s building's implied in there.
So I'm fine with that, as a maybe. So then renovation would also be a maybe.
Yep.
And then,
I don't like your attitude, young man.
What's that?
and then this,
Yeah.
redistribution, we would say yes.
7:08 on my third night out.
I would think so.
Yeah.
We need to talk about a police station.
Okay, additional academic support space, what are we talking about?
That's definitely not a repair.
But what is it though? Is
It's
it,
special ed, because they're all in the same.
Yeah, it's breaking out our special ed to make them.
so it's different than the core services, it's different than.
Yeah,
speech?
in fact, you don't want them to be core service. You don't want them to be centralized. You want them to be close to the grade levels that they service.
It's still a maybe then.
It's not,
I think that a repair only is a no,
I would agree.
Why?
because we.
Because he wants
can't-
it close to the different grade levels, right? Like,
You
so
can't move it to
you
the
can't
30s.
move it to the 30s building, or even
You
move.
don't have to move the 30s. The 30s building gives you a chance to move things around. It's four
Right,
more.
I'm saying, but let's say you moved, I don't know, the third grade over there. There's no place over there to put that space he's looking for if you needed those 4 full classrooms in the 30s building for the third grade.
So is that like,
Wait.
so would that be 4 spaces then that you're looking for that? Or is there 2? Like, what are you looking for specifically?
3.
Do you have one now?
We have one room that has 4 case managers.
Right,
in
so
it
if you
that
need-
services.
So
5
do you
grades.
need 3 more or 3 in total?
3 in total. 3 in total.
So you only need 2 more?
Yeah.
So, repairs, maybe.
Throw him a bone, give him a no.
How?
No, I'm not.
I just think that, given
Well,
that. that
repairs
is-
maybe if you're moving the kids. Because unless you move the kids, you're not gaining.
That's redistribution.
Right. So that would be,
Well, Ron's saying if we fix the 30s building, there's more space to move people around
Okay.
inside the building itself.
I think you might try to limit how many kids are in there, because we don't have an elevator. There's no.
Oh, that's part,
accessible-
it's on here.
I
That's why I
still,
don't think it's a repair.
I mean, I don't wanna
An
hard.
elevator is not
Well,
a repair.
really, the crux of,
There isn't one,
the
right?
crux, but,
Repair is just take what you have and
but
bring
the
it
crux
back to
of, the crux of
service.
whether it's considered in this is, Ron's argument is that she added that in for price. She added in that she could put an elevator in there, and that you could basically get that fully functional within the $5 million of the whole building.
In my mind, this is what's in here is what I consider the repairs only option. And and the
that's what
1930s building is in here.
Yeah, but no.
That's what-
They did a full abatement, they did.
She did not.
Oh, we
So
have
I
an
asked that
elevator
question. So
expert
they're,
Yeah,
her
30
costs
figures
in
the
here
elevator business,
are not
couple
as
hundred
accurate as I
thousand
think they
dollars
need to be.
minimum.
But the idea of it is in here.
Minimal.
That's
For
why,
what,
like,
an
I
elevator?
think like the stuff in here
Yeah.
with the thirties,
You know how much
there's
you
just
get
like
in
a
there?
lot to work through before you're committing to those being
In
closed.
the elevator?
I agree with you,
Yeah,
that's
200,000.
why past groups
That's why I
put it
said
as
200,000.
storage.
And also, I don't think it can
That's
be
the
our
elevator
get out
installed,
of
it's not
no
the
free
maintenance
card.
and
Because it,
The whole
it's now that it's
construction.
usable space, it's turning everything into a maybe, when I think, in this case, it's clearly a no.
I would agree.
Stanley elevator bills out
Yeah.
$500 an hour for a single
It's like
mechanic
a-
right now.
It's got a pocket
Maintenance on
universe,
elevators is
everything goes over there.
expensive.
I feel like this is a no.
Agreed.
Vote. Vote.
Okay,
Yeah, take a vote.
take a vote.
I motion that this is a no.
I second it.
Fine. Okay, fine. All who agree that this is a no, please raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I also 7.
I think it's a maybe.
Man, you just gotta throw those wrenches.
All right,
voted
I'll
you.
revoke my vote. So it's 6, 6,
Two.
1. So it's going to be a no. Renovation is
Nope.
no.
Same problem. You didn't gain the space you need to have that.
This is a yes. This is a
Yes.
yes. All right.
I think what you just said is the perfect way to think of renovation. Why didn't we say it before? Do you need to gain space to solve this problem?
It's a great way to think about it.
Yeah.
You skipped right over traffic.
No, I just was thinking about this ahead of time. All right, traffic. So this is, addresses the traffic issue.
And you got 3 no's in a row there.
Yeah.
Well, plus your addition.
I think that makes that worse.
That's a maybe.
I think it's a maybe.
Yeah, it is amazing.
You might
Because they were-
reconfigure
because they were
the
talking
driveways
about,
and
they were talking about taking out, the renovation addition, at least the one that I saw that was proposed, was removing the parts that are closest. So the 30s building becomes a freestanding,
Yeah.
and then,
Then you can bring the
All,
driveway
well, if
around
it
the
becomes
back.
freestanding, it's all the more reason why you shouldn't consider it for some other things.
yeah.
Because now you have the same issue as the portables, right? You're sending kids outside.
Well, no, it wouldn't be, yeah.
It wouldn't be a
It
classroom
would
then.
be a yes.
It'd be the-
Exactly, so it changes
And then
the,
redistribution would
Is a
be
no.
a no.
'Cause the
Yeah,
road,
right.
you're not changing anything.
no, but you
I
might have
think it's
fewer
actually a
people
maybe. Yeah.
driving into the lot,
You
so
don't know that.
maybe.
Maybe all of second grade
No,
decides to
she's
commute.
right, that's a maybe. That's a
Because,
maybe.
well, just think about it,
Make
if
them
you're
take
third and
the
fourth,
bus.
if you take 2 grades worth of parents out of that parking lot, it might help.
If you wanna
I'll be
drive your
honest
kid
with
to
you.
school, it costs you
I've been going to school
$500 a
every
year.
day. You guys need to have.
No.
Yes.
So
That's
How
what
about
you
we
do.
charge
You
people
make
for
it
the bus,
punitive.
does it
Later
actually
today,
cost
she
people
made a
money?
left turn right in front of
Make
me.
it
She
also
looked
the
right at
safest
me and
way to
turned
get-
right.
It's the safest
All
way
right,
to get in and
guys,
out of school.
we,
Keep going, we're almost there.
a few more. All right,
Almost there, you
so
have 15
Can you put
minutes.
those,
for these options, do they avoid
Helicopter
interruption to
parents?
education?
I know you're a helicopter parent, but there's another word.
So,
For an hour in the morning.
No.
They're all no's except for one.
Yeah, I mean, the only question is, can
It was
any
too
of them
loud,
be
it was too
achieved
noisy.
We
in
can,
just
we
the
gotta
summer?
let, we
But I
have
don't think
people.
so, right?
Honestly, I can't
making
even
a
answer this question. This is
generation
where-
soft people because.
This is where it would take the board action to,
Tough.
I think, get us someone who is
Jesus,
gonna
wet.
guide us through
All right,
this
so
process.
This is what we're gonna do, we're gonna do maybes.
A project can be phased. There's no, we work on
Absolutely.
campuses all over New England.
Every summer, in
And every summer,
and out.
at the big colleges and places like that where we had to start on this date and we had to be done by this date.
Yep.
And for 99% of them, we pulled that off. Because you put in the contracts a penalty clause
Penalties.
that says if you go over
What a
this time,
concept,
you're
Ron.
paying, you're paying this,
Sorry,
this
right.
penalty.
Alternatively, they might say, well, we're happy to do that, it's gonna cost you double time to get us done on time, so you
Oh,
could be
no.
paying a premium.
No, no.
Okay, so when we were talking about the
Oh,
thirties
you
building,
ran
I added
overnight
this, I don't know
Take
that it
that
makes
off.
sense to keep it, alright.
Well, no, it does.
With enough money, you could
No.
absolutely.
We've already agreed it's in the repairs option already.
Well, yeah, but so it
So that it-
addresses
You
it.
got it.
So then we're just doing yes across.
The reason being is renovation, at least according to Kyle, does not include the 1930s building.
We're not using, you keep
We're not
going
using
back to that,
Kyle's.
we're not using Kyle's.
I'm just saying,
That's
as
almost like
far
a-
as you're looking for a cost estimate for renovation,
But you can include
you're
that in
gonna
any
use
one
Kyle's,
of
it's the
them.
only
I mean,
number we
fine,
have.
I don't,
It could be a
it's a yes,
standalone
yes,
project
yes,
in
no,
one.
yes.
Yes.
No, sorry, no.
No.
It's 3 yeses and 2 nos.
Yes.
So no,
Because
no.
Why?
a renovation
If
can
we
address it.
renovate, we can address the thirties.
We certainly can.
If we do a renovation in addition, we can address the thirties building in
And
all of
any
these.
one of the options.
No, that's a no.
You're not,
That's a no.
have to do something with
All right,
it.
to Kyle's
Those
number,
last
we
two are
gotta have
no's.
the 1930s.
Why is it a no? At any point in time, you
Because
can
the new
address it.
building doesn't address the
Accessibility.
30, well, can you go back, that's a no on the new building.
Why?
Because it doesn't address the 30s building,
Because
right?
there will be.
You're
no-
gonna move away from it and you're gonna leave it there.
Yes, but
That's
it's
one way of
going,
addressing it.
Yes.
You can still do the repair.
Abandonment is a
of the
way to
30s
deal with
building
it.
And have it to be
Oh,
something.
you're not gonna abandon it.
I'm just thinking in the idea of what this matrix is doing, I would say no to those last two.
well, you
but-
could limit the scope of your
I'm not gonna
building,
argue with
Well,
but-
if we change it to utilizes the thirties building, would that
Still
be
gonna
better?
the SAU
I think that's
office.
better.
Because you can use it at any point in time, if you got, if it, we have to keep the building, because if you knock it down and get
I'm
rid
not
of it.
saying that, I'm just
So
saying,
why leave it sitting there vacant, which is causing more problems in the long run?
because there's a cost to
Again,
doing
the
anything with
SAU.
it.
I'm not, yeah.
There's a cost to doing anything with it,
So,
right?
but
And so
if
if we,
But
if
if we
you
put all our
renovate-
money into a new building, there may not be money to deal with that building,
Or
and it may
you
sit there as
build a
storage.
bigger, a smaller new building, because we have space for the SAU.
How's that, Ron?
The SU has the space already. They wouldn't have to move.
You
All
can
right.
make your school bigger, smaller.
Accessibility.
No,
Nope.
no,
No.
maybe,
Yes.
Maybe, yes.
yes.
I would put
I-
renovation addition, yes.
Yeah, why is renovation a
Yes.
no?
I don't know, someone just said no, said maybe, so I
He's
just.
like,
I
I'm
think-
sorry.
So we said yes?
It's
Sorry.
I think it's a maybe, but, and I don't wanna go down the rabbit hole of what needs to be renovated to
I was
make
just
it.
gonna
But
say
have
for
you built
accessibility,
it
you
to
may
rent?
not be able to physically do it.
Well, I think, yeah,
Yeah.
I think,
I don't think it's a no.
You'll
It's
achieve
not
it
a
in,
no.
you'll achieve it in places, you may not achieve it in all places.
Yeah.
I think a maybe is right there.
okay.
I think,
Did I miss one?
Yeah,
I think that's a
renovation's
no,
maybe.
because you're not doing any,
Yeah,
the construction,
the
you're
same
just opening up space that already exists,
Well, I-
that is not accessible at the moment.
Not necessarily.
If we're saying that part of redistribution is renovating GMS, then it should be a maybe.
Sold.
Renovation should be a maybe, because it depends on how far are you going? Are we saying it's everything, or is it some of it?
Right, I think renovation is a maybe though.
Okay. Code compliance. We added that because we were talking about that at the beginning.
I would take it
I
out.
don't-
I don't like having it in
know if it's
there.
code compliance, I would say it's more of bring up to current code, because technically,
Isn't that the same way?
no,
way of
no,
saying-
because
No.
if I'm repairing it in the current state, it complies with what you need to comply with.
In kind.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Complies with, okay.
So, you know,
It complies with current code.
Well,
What is
they
it? What's
don't,
it- what
they
is
don't
it?
force that.
New Hampshire hasn't even adopted
That's why I think
has
take it off completely. I don't think it's a
I
thing
thought
that
there
we
were a
can put
couple,
on
I
there.
thought
I
there were a
think it's
couple additions
confusing to have
behind.
it.
I would agree.
Massive building code, I can't remember.
I would take that whole line
I
off.
thought there were two.
The only
versions
thing
behind.
is, we've had a lot of conversations where it's been a point of contention as to whether or not we should be bringing it up to current standards.
I think that's a limiting factor of which option you choose when Ray gets his answer, hopefully.
I'm gonna
Well, I
get,
also don't think
He's
we
texting
can.
Frank probably right now.
I'm,
I
well,
don't
Ned,
think we can
as it's now called.
distinguish between all the different options. I mean, I can see, so like, in the repair, is a replacement of the electric panel for the electric system.
yeah, we won't be able to answer this
So you replace
question.
that,
that would be
you're
code.
gonna have to bring it up to code.
Yeah.
So I'm deleting
You have
this.
to do it in the repair, but I don't know that she factored that in when she costed that.
Well, here's what she did on electrical panels. The electrical panels that are in there are fine. The problem with the electrical panels, there's not enough outlets, there's not enough panels through the building.
Yeah, no,
So the answer to that is you simply run more trunk lines through the building, create more panels, and then you can put circuits where you need them.
they've already upgraded the service coming into that building. I think it's right at like its max
Can you bring in a
capacity.
second?
They-
You'd have to bring
they
in another
need
pipe.
A new
complete
line.
Distribution,
I
yeah.
know
I
electricians.
don't
Be
think
another
that's
pipe.
true.
It is true, we're maxed.
Huh?
We're maxed.
No, but I think that's
They-
different
they
than
work-
bringing the
work
whole
on this.
building up to code. That's why I don't think
Hey,
it
we're
belongs
good.
on here.
Okay,
Like,
for 30.
of
But
course,
you work
anybody you
at
hire to
us.
come do
No,
electrical
you
work
have
is gonna do
personal
it to the
knowledge,
proper
right?
standards, right?
I
They're not
volunteered
gonna
there
put
for
in knob and
2
tube wiring, like, that's not what they do, right? They're gonna fix it, and they're gonna replace, and they're gonna put it in as they're required to put it in. They're not gonna put their license on the line.
Right.
Okay,
Not for us.
we added
In fact, that's
fire
almost why we didn't
suppression
open in 2020.
What's that?
Switch.
to
When that
this,
switch.
much to Carrie's dismay,
2020,
but we did add it.
It's expensive and unnecessary.
We added fire suppression, so this is a no, right?
Why can't you?
Because it's
Well, the
repair
repairs
only.
only, it didn't account for.
It didn't
It's
include
not-
it under repairs only.
In here.
Remember, we're just evaluating these options, whether it does achieve that, and the repairs only is based on the on-site inside report.
And putting stuff back the way it was.
Renovation, what you're talking about, renovation is a
Maybe.
maybe.
Well, you could, whether or not you.
I think it's a
want
yes.
to.
It's not a maybe. It's a yes. In a renovation, you could put, it would be costly, but you could put a
Right.
fire suppression system in
So
it.
just for reference,
There's nothing
Um,
stopping us.
the state of New Hampshire adopted the most recent NFPA code, which is August 13th, 2024, is what we're operating on, so.
That's the NFPA, what about the actual building code?
International Building Code 2021.
So if anybody wants, there's a number in the Turner report to add fire suppression to GMS. It's 750,000.
And that's what was removed.
And if you got the
I
building,
think you're
if you
gonna
got
know
the
on that one,
ceilings and stuff out,
It's the time to do it.
not,
So you
it's
can, I
realistic to
think,
do it.
well, depends what you
Do
wanna
we have
do.
the
You can make that a
water?
maybe.
Yeah.
You wanna-
We have the
We
line.
have the water.
All right,
No, but you have
eliminates
water pressure?
portables.
Do we need pumps?
We have a
No,
specific
no.
line that's
No.
already there waiting.
No,
Yes.
yes.
I got that answer today.
Yes.
And
Maybe.
maybe.
Those have air conditioning.
Really, I think if you-
I totally agree with you.
I think if you
I'm honestly,
redistribute
I don't
the kids,
understand why
then you
that's
don't
a
need the
goal.
portables.
Well, that's the hope, but we're not 100% sure because we may have to move the SAU and then we don't know if we have enough room. with
Aren't there people
kindergarten.
who
The
are like,
SAU was in Campbell when Campbell was built, so to put the 580 kids in that school, they wouldn't have to move. They wouldn't have to move. I think it would be better if they moved, but they don't
it
have
just
to.
opens up the wings for those who are concerned about seventh and eighth commingling with the upper levels.
I think we should keep it as a maybe for.
Okay.
But they get the benefit, you keep the portables, they get the benefit of the air conditioning. Because
why it needs to be a maybe.
we own those outright,
So
and
I
just-
added,
oh.
this may be an unpopular thing, but I did add
An
sufficient
8-inch
storage.
supply line
I know we
in
talked
front
about
of the
classroom storage, but when we were
know
talking
what
about the
water
thirties
pressure is?
building being storage,
Yeah,
I
I
felt
just
like
know
that
that.
was something that we
Because
should
they'll have to design it to make sure
You
there's
could get
enough
Reed
pressure
Ferry
as
to
far
donate a
as
big shed.
sprinkler.
However,
You're looking at
when
me.
we had
No,
city
no, I
water,
was listening. I was listening intently.
they
That was
ran
the
an
end.
8-inch supply line.
That's not the concern, is the pressure. You have to be able to get, you have to get adequate pressure to the furthest sprinkler head from your system. So do we need a pressurized pump to help?
You
get
need
through?
a pump.
Oh, yeah,
I would
definitely.
imagine you would.
All right, so we're super close, guys.
Yep.
We got this, so sufficient storage.
724, we can do
I
that.
added sufficient storage just when we were talking about the thirties building, because it's being used for storage right now, understanding that there's stuff that probably could be pared down, but,
Burned.
right, but we are, in the current layout, we are currently pretty,
All come together.
we're using it as storage right now, so we would say,
Well, you have to say no if you're gonna include the thirties building as a repair.
correct.
Right.
Well, it depends.
Agreed.
Well, part of the question becomes how much storage do you need? If you
I-
walk into that building now, I'd say 75% of it should be thrown away.
Well, you
I
can't
would-
make
I
that
was-
determination, you don't know what's that
I
is,
don't
and you don't
either,
know what they use it for.
but you can't have 4,000 square feet of storage.
I'm leaning
It's
yes
come to
across
my
the
house.
board on that one.
Huh?
I'm leaning yes across the board on that one.
Yeah.
Because like we talked about, the
But a
repair
lot of
only-
what we're-
the repair only addresses the 30s building and makes it usable space.
But I agree
Which
with
means
Carolyn,
that
though,
you are able to move either one or two of the portables into that space potentially, and now that could become
So I
your
guess-
storage.
Well, I have a question.
And to my mind, a whole portable worth of storage is significant storage.
Well, how much more storage do we need if we're already using 1930s for storage?
Well, but the whole thing with the repairs is
You're-
that for a lot of these other considerations, we've said we would be utilizing those for people.
You're using that space. You've renovated that space, you're using that space.
I don't
But
think
Something.
Well, I just don't think it's wise.
You've opened up other space, so that's why
I
I'm
wanna get a
making,
feel from,
yes across the board, in my opinion.
How much is sufficient storage though? Let's get an idea of what, in order to see if we have enough room
I'm
in
just
the
gonna go
building.
based off of what we have in storage right now, understanding that we probably compare it down,
We can
but
just go yes across the board,
Alright.
Yeah.
because it's a
Fine
lot
with
of
me,
things, something to
not
consider.
yours.
Even if you had to buy a couple of containers and put a roof over them, for storage.
Well, but that wouldn't fall
Jeez,
under,
there's a million
$7,000.
things. Do you centralize all your curriculum stuff in CHS?
We close off
Like, there's a
the
million things.
courtyard
did we?
and centralize storage.
I've
God, I would
only
love to do that.
suggested that for
I hate the
30
courtyards.
years, I'm not suggesting it anymore.
Can we, okay, so last 5 minutes here. Is there anything that we feel like we missed? I feel like we did a pretty good job of this. Is there anything we feel like we missed on this?
The only two things I will just throw out there, and we don't have to include them, but as we were sitting there, is parking. Is that something you would wanna
That is-
reconsider?
Something that we need to
Mhm.
consider.
And then fields, like if you're gonna involve fields in any part of this in any way, right? I have no knowledge if you're happy with your fields out there by that school, not happy about those.
Are the fields the
such-
towns or the schools? Like
The
the
schools.
ball fields, not the playground, but the baseball
The
fields?
schools, far
The
as I
schools,
know.
that, actually, believe it or not, that's the middle school
That's
property.
the middle school.
The GMS property is a small kind of little triangular-ish thing, and the middle school property, it has this like weird
Parking-
like arm down that captures those fields.
So parking has been identified as an issue though, right? We know that that's an
Parking's
issue.
always an issue.
Yeah.
And the onsite insight report was taking care of resurfacing, but it wasn't adding parking.
It was not
It
adding
didn't do
parking.
it did not do a traffic redesign.
It was,
Okay, so this
I think,
is-
painting and eventually repaving.
No.
Painting, yeah.
In fact,
Because
did it
the
include,
ocean stripe
did it
issue-
include paving, or was it just
Yes.
patching?
Ceiling and
I think it's
striping.
further out in the
Okay.
plan, but
Yeah.
it's in here.
In there, but not
Yeah.
right away.
Well, what about redistribution?
You're
No.
moving 2 grades out, you have less cars
Yeah,
to park.
you'd probably meet your parking needs.
I'm supposed to say yes. Okay. I don't know about fields.
I don't know either.
They're
I'm just
LMS,
throwing
again,
out.
they're LMS fields, and we've talked
I
about
have
doing
no
something
idea.
else with the fields.
They've been talking about putting a soccer field in there for like, well, at least the
Yeah,
last
There was-
15 years.
I think for
Where
our
the-
purposes,
They
we probably
used to
don't
be,
need that.
that's where Litchfield soccer used
there
to play, was
anything
on that
else-
Litchfield, when we moved
I
here.
don't think redistribution is a definite yes on
For which one?
parking.
Well, you
Sure,
have-
you're moving 2 grades, but that's 8 cars.
No, but
You're
it's
not
all the
changing-
parents of the 8
They're not
classes.
parking.
They're not
all the
parking
time.
there.
So what problems do we have? Well,
You're
you,
bringing over, like, again, if you're bringing the SAU.
I tell you what,
we each
on
have a
February
car.
6th, we're having the
Someone
Winterfest.
coming over with those.
Yeah, I'm-
From
Alright.
6 to
We
8
have
or
people
5 to
I'll say
7,
maybe not
drive by.
office all day.
no, I'm good.
I'm not saying it's not.
3 minutes, guys. 3 minutes.
Every time I walk by, I get annoyed by that filled-in swale that should be cleared out so that drainage works.
Okay, so are we, no one has anything else lingering in their heads that we missed, at least as far as right now? I mean, we could digest this a little bit,
But does parking even need to be on this? Because couldn't it be a standalone
I
project?
have no idea.
but, well, I
Couldn't we,
think.
could
I
you
think that-
extend
I think we need to
ban?
address it as part
So
of the
it was-
plan.
It was identified as a deficiency, and there are elements in here that would address it, so I think it's worth at least including.
Okay, but it's like a standalone, you can address it in any one of these, because you could, why
But the
not?
but the one it does, you can't address it in, because again, with the repairs only, we are working within a budget that's defined by the.
I'm saying, I think I would
onsite
treat it as a
report.
separate project, cause you could get parking and not get a school. You can get a school and not get parking, but, cause reality is, you could probably pave that, where they have some of those soccer meetings, and you just grab some space, add 10 to
So when
12
I think when
spots.
we prioritize, that's
Yeah.
a good thing for us to consider, is that it may.
Well, cause this is gonna take a while to hash out, you can put in parking at any time.
Yeah,
Well, we put it in now, it starts the conversation now, that's part of the overall.
Sure, I'm just saying it doesn't have to if we feel it's a priority, we don't need to wait until we figure
I
out.
don't,
no, I agree.
I don't know that it's a priority, but it may filter down that it's a number 10 and not a number 2.
Right.
But if we have it involved in the whole conversation, then at least it's ranked.
All right, so now we have 1 minute, but I really wanna talk about where we're going, next steps, what we're looking to achieve, because I think the one thing that's really tough is to figure out, okay, well, this was a good exercise, but now we have to do more with this, right? So is the next piece of this ranking these things?
No, next piece is put cost on them. Can't rank without cost.
Well, you can rank,
I think you can rank it
On
how much you
need,
value
we
that.
need to rank it on need and not dollars.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think, I mean, the
First.
original concept that Dan presented when he first started talking about this matrix was, you know, it's sort of like the equivalent of a qualifications-based procurement of something, right? You look at all of the things that you want done, and does this approach satisfy all of those things, and that's
Right.
one thing. And then you look at the cost, and then you
Right.
decide whether this cost.
Right.
Yeah,
How many of my needs can I get met for the cost that I'm comfortable with?
right.
Right, this is a needs assessment in my
Right.
mind. This is, cost is a separate thing on this side, this is my needs, now I gotta eventually bring the two of them together.
All right, so for the next meeting, we can go through that and analyze them based on, or sort of prioritize them. Once we do that, what are our thoughts on where we go?
Send the spreadsheet out to everybody
Okay.
and have them go through individually and rank each one of those elements on an agreed scale. And then we bring it back and see what the consensus is.
It's shared in the drive, and I'm
This
actually-
auto saves, right?
Yeah,
Whatever
but
I-
I'm then changing the name to,
But everybody should do that exercise on your own copy.
Yeah.
instead of draft 1.0, it's now draft 1,
Well,
23,
if this
25.
is, if people are accessing this
12325.
through the drive, we
Yeah.
need people to understand how to do it. on
I think we
their
should
copy.
email a copy out to everybody.
Yeah, I do
Yeah,
think we
because
should.
otherwise you have to download.
Yeah.
Not, can we email?
Not the
yeah,
drive copy,
can we
email an
a
independent
that's Not the
copy,
drive copy?
so people can edit on their own without affecting the drive copy.
Copy of, okay.
Yeah.
Or make a master copy of this that's not,
Or force that people have to have an edited version.
I'm gonna do it if it lands in my email,
Or
but
not.
if I have to go fetch it, it's probably not
okay.
gonna get done.
Does anyone have anything else that we need to?
So what are you asking folks to do now?
I think the next thing that we're going to do is we're gonna talk about
Prioritization.
the prioritization of these
You mean
items.
just take that yellow list and go one through,
No, the whole list.
So based on what you have, the yes, nos, and maybes,
yeah?
which ones do you think are more important?
That's what I'm saying, you take the yellow list and then reconfigure in your mind, what's 1, 2,
Sure.
Well,
3,
but it's
4.
why are you eliminating the other stuff?
Yeah,
You
because
you
some
need
of
to
it
take the
overlaps.
whole list.
I agree with Ron, the 1 through 89 is getting done no matter what we decide.
But to Marilyn's point though, in some of these options, we may have to say, that's great, but we can't do that. So knowing what's important. But with that said, I think it's gonna be really hard to rank some of that stuff. I think the yellow stuff is easier to rank than the,
Matt,
yes.
I think you need
this
to do
is
the
a
whole thing.
great exercise, I loved it, but we're still down to the same 2 or 3 options that we're just avoiding discussing and voting on. It's gonna bring us back to the same place.
Alright, so that's a fair point.
But I think it's a good exercise to do, right? Like, this
So
is
this is
a
what we'll do.
process of getting
We will do
there.
that, we will do that exercise, but we will also have a more substantive discussion about looking at what do we think this is telling us and what combined with we do have to revisit the survey at some point.
But go back to the question, what do you want us to do with this? Rank all 107?
Marilyn, when you look at this, do you think, I guess, honestly,
five?
I think the 1 through 89 we could take a stab at, I think boilers are pretty important, I know boilers are pretty important.
But is that gonna change, like, if
But
we say
it
boilers
doesn't-
are important and we wanna work it into all 5 options, it doesn't really
But
change
they're already in all 5 options, that's the point.
Right.
Yeah, I guess if we do the 1 through 89, it's really just getting ahead of ourselves, because we at some point we will, if it's, truly if it's a repairs only option, we will have to say, okay, now, based on the price, are we gonna actually do it?
Right, that's
And
where
even
I
then
think you
you're
get into
gonna have to, like, re-rank
prioritizations, right?
it,
Like,
how
when
much you
when
wanna
you've narrowed this down to say the 2 options, and you start looking at like, okay, what's gonna be included in a renovation? Well, we can do these 5 things, but we can't do these 5 things, cause now it puts the cost outside our range.
Alright, so we're gonna stick with the yellow.
I
We
think
will-
we're sticking to all is what we just said.
No, because the rest of this stuff, when we
Add
get,
up the-
when we get down to it, we have prices, that's when we'll have to start
Gotcha.
saying, okay, to Carrie's point, okay, well, that's way outside of what's an acceptable budget, so we may have to dial that. Alright, so we will discuss that, and then we will discuss in more depth what this actually means and what we think it
So-
means. And
Not to put on, because the yellow stuff people are gonna rate, what scale are we?
yes, and please do not mess up the master copy. Dan, find a way to like make a separate copy, because the master copy.
And then can we
Email a
decide,
copy.
email, should we do like a 1 through 5 scale, 5 is your highest priority one, and then we can.
I think we're, I think, are we?
How many
ready?
are there?
Are
You're
we
starting at
ready?
1 and just going down to the how many there are?
Or just doing it in rank orders, just like.
Stack ranking.
Stack ranking, sounds great.
You take the items and just rank them,
Yeah,
and then the,
Sounds great.
you know,
Okay.
the maybes and all that goes with them.
Are we gonna argue how we are ranking them though, individually, next time we come?
Top is your highest priority.
Oh, I'm sure we are.
How many are there,
You're
Matt?
gonna take the average of the spots.
Are you controlling this, or is,
You need a good
how many are there?
Question comes still, it's like,
Five,
okay.
it's like Google.
You're looking a little
18
blue.
stars.
Right, so it's 1 through 18.
Can we just do top three, the third, middle of the third, bottom of the third, so we don't have to argue over?
No, I don't think we're gonna argue, we're gonna take but everybody ranks it and take the average,
yeah.
and then
Like, it's the
decide.
number one thing across the board for everybody,
Okay.
it's the number one priority.
Right.
Want to be respectful of everyone's time, thank you. We will adjourn this meeting now. Without a motion.
I second the motion.
There you go.
Someone.